The action takes place in the best VR fantasy game, Rono Life. It opens up another world, another reality. The main character, David, entered the game. Other players did not accept him, did not want to take him into the game. They insulted and humiliated him, saying that his clothes are shit. He needed to level up. He was angry that he was not accepted into the team. And then a girl player approached him. Her name was Angela. She invited him to play a game of team with her. David happily agreed, and she led him aside. They walked and talked. David told her that his parents gave him some money, and he invested it in gold. He bought all the beginner kits that he could afford. He had a knight's sword. Angela said he looked like a fairy tale knight. David melted and already imagined how they would get married and have children. But Angela interrupted his dreams, saying that they had already arrived. David couldn't understand. It was just a forest. And at that moment, Angela swung her sword and wounded David. He fell to the ground, bleeding, and asked if she had done it to take his gun. She replied that it was junk and she didn't need it. Angela lured him into the forest on purpose to kill him. She wasn't going to play team with him because he's a poor loser. And in life, the bottom scrapes, just like in the game. Angela insulted and humiliated him, saying that he was a bum, that his parents were poor, and that he had crappy clothes in the game. David didn't hesitate, jumped up, said that she was a bitch and had crossed all boundaries. But Angela swung her sword and cut him in half. Thus, she fulfilled the conditions for transition to the hidden class and immediately transformed into the goddess of life. He was her 1000th victim. David learned the terrible truth about this game. The law of the jungle was in effect here. His character died. He respawned in a safe place, somewhere in an alley, and lost most of his experience. David was in his underwear. He remembered everything that happened to him, and he wanted revenge. He took out the craftsman's hammer and tried to improve his sword, but after the third blow, the sword broke. He also tried to do this with the bloody iron bracers. The result was the same. In the end, he was unable to improve his equipment, but only broke it. When a part of the set was broken, he lost the whole set. He was dejected, decided that everything was useless, and this game was crap. But then, an ordinary wooden club fell next to him. A strange character from the game stood nearby and said that he was giving this club to David. It was a beginner's weapon, practically useless. In complete despair, he grabbed the craftsman's hammer and struck the club, its strength increasing by +1. David hit it again, and began to hammer the club. It kept getting better and better. He wanted to just break it with this hammer out of anger, because he had broken his equipment. But the club did not break. It improved, and lo and behold, he had upgraded his gear to the maximum +99. David decided that this was impossible and slammed his club into the ground. The earth shook. Everything around shook. People screamed, not understanding what was happening. They thought it was an attack by the Dark Knight. When everything calmed down, it turned out that the continent had split in two. This all happened from the blow of a club to the ground. On this day, a new world record in VR games was entered into the Guinness Book of Records. David's reputation was enhanced because he killed players, but it turned out that 850,617 players were killed with one blow. David perked up. He learned the rules of this game, and he paid for his knowledge with his life. The hero perked up and remembered those who had insulted him. His eyes filled with anger, and he wanted revenge. In real life, David was a nobody, nondescript in appearance, of average height, and did not excel in either studies or sports. If you were to describe his life in gaming terms, it would be level bronze 4. But now, in the game, he was above everyone. He was invincible. He found some rags, threw them on like a cloak, and walked around the city. David accidentally bumped into a large man with his shoulder. He grabbed him by the chest and started threatening him. His lady asked him not to touch the poor. The man laughed with his club. David swung the stick and hit him on the head. Flash, and the man disappeared. David thought he was invincible. He was the main character of this game. The durability of the club was reduced. 3 hits out of 5 remained. David walked into the alley, sat down on the ground, and began to think about how he could increase the strength of the club. It was a beginner's weapon, low durability, breaks after a few hits. Durability 3 out of 5. He knew he had only 3 hits left. And again he remembered those players who humiliated him. He especially wanted to take revenge on Angela. That lying fool. He was driven only by revenge. David decided to use the last blows to take revenge on them. And with these thoughts, he wandered around the game. He entered the Valley of Death. The whole area was strewn with skulls and bones of people. He walked boldly on them. Everything crunched under his feet. At that moment, a huge 2-headed dragon, Urus, appeared out of nowhere. The strongest boss in Chrono Life. He hissed at David that the mere mortal had crossed the line of the dead. Here was the boundary between life and death. And now eternal torment awaited him. David didn't lose his head and decided that since he only had 3 hits left, he would at least kill the strongest monster in this world. He hit the dragon once, it fell to the ground and begged for mercy. He asked David not to rush and talk to him. The hero was surprised and asked why he had just threatened him with death. The dragon replied that it was his script, and he had to recite it. The monster asked who David was, and he replied that he had come to kill him. And he hit the dragon with the club a second time. The monster was barely alive, and David thought that he had only 1 hit left, and he did not know how to increase the strength of this club. The dragon, with his last strength, told the hero that he could help him with the weapon's durability reserve. And David was given a task, a pact, with a 2-headed dragon who wanted to give him his soul. He could not understand anything. The monster explained that he could make an ego sword out of his club by inhabiting the weapon and inhabiting it with his spirit. This weapon will have its own soul and infinite durability. The ego sword is the strongest weapon in the world, and David agreed to accept the task and to take the soul of the dragon. He accepted the quest. A bright light flashed, and the physical body of the 2-headed dragon Urus disappeared. His soul entered the weapon. The wooden club has evolved into an ego class with infinite durability, and in David's head, it all started. The master was thirsty for revenge, and Urus was thirsty for revenge. Revenge, revenge, revenge. He decided to take revenge, together with Urus's army. Meanwhile, a crowd of people gathered in the city's main square, and a guard in armor announced a reward for the villain's head, a reward of rank 999. The photo showed the villain, David. The law enforcement officer explained that this man had killed more than 80,000 people in a day. It was the largest mass murder in the history of the game. Rewards for the capture of the villain were posted all over the city. The information was also spread throughout all 12 kingdoms and all 3 continents. The reward was announced at 1 trillion gold. People were shocked by the size of the reward. And then the knights appeared on the square. They walked under the coat of arms of the royal guard. They were led by the leader of the Guild of Royal Knights, Helen. 10 of the most elite knights in red cloaks with white crosses also approached, led by the leader of the guild, the White Crosses, Henry. The strongest mage in the royal family, the leader of the Holy Land Guild Abracadabra, appeared on the square. More and more knights from various guilds were approaching. Among them was the Guild of Noble Robbery, with its leader, Robin Hood. The King of Arden, the leader of the Justice Guild named Hawkeye, came out to them from the palace. 5 of the world's most powerful guilds came together with a single goal. It was the first ever alliance of the strongest guilds on the planet. Kroll Arden, as the leader of the worldwide alliance, declared total war on the mass murderer of players. David was walking down the city street looking at his club, and suddenly a dragon's head appeared from it. He was scared. He couldn't understand who it was and what it was. The dragon said that it was him, Urus, only he was much nicer and had 1 head. Where the other head went was unclear. Urus said that since his soul had entered his weapon, David could now see and hear him, but only he. Those around him could not see anything. While they were chatting sweetly, leaflets started falling on their heads. Picking one up, David saw an announcement of a reward for his head. He was shocked. He was wandering around the city, and these leaflets were pasted on all the walls everywhere. The dragon said that he didn't expect anything else. He was hunted because he killed 800,000 people with one blow. And the reward is 1 trillion. That's real money. A royal reward. David was surprised that the NPC was programmed to say things like real money. After all, artificial intelligence can't know what it is. Urus asked what the owner's plans were, because he must understand that players from all over the world would hunt for him day and night. David asked if he should just kill humanity right now, but then he decided that since he was such a celebrity, he would pretend to be a loser. A loser hiding superpowers. This is when someone very strong pretends to be completely harmless. Urus couldn't understand why. How can you tolerate humiliation and such treatment? But David explained that in this way, no one around you will know that the main character of the game is in front of them, and he himself will enjoy life in a fantasy world. It's really cool. At that moment, David was pierced by an arrow from a bow, and he fell to the ground. Urus circled above him. This arrow was fired by the leader of the Justice Guild, Hawkeye. Direct hit. All the knights began to gather around the prone David. The king, the head of the united forces of the guild, ordered the knights to immediately seize the villain and put him in prison. And they all headed towards the hero. Urus tried to bring David to his senses, ordering him to get up. He warned that these people were weak, but together they were dangerous. David gathered all his strength and rose to his feet. And the guild king ordered all the knights to rush to the attack. No mercy. James realized that his loser act wouldn't work. He pulled the arrow out of himself in an instant. He swung his club and struck. They asked for it. One blow and all the knights were dead, and the capital of the First Kingdom was destroyed, annihilated. The king, the leader of the united forces, remained alive. He took out a summoning crystal that called as many users as needed to help. The crystal's price was 10 million zlotys. The king crushed it and called for all members of the united forces to appear. Mass teleportation began. Approximately 3 million players were teleported in. They formed a dense army around David, and the leader of the Guild of United Forces directed them all to attack the villain. David waved his stick. But even Urus, the strongest boss in this world, could not stand up to all players at the same time. The United Forces Guild is too strong an opponent. These are elite warriors from all over the world. Urus can only win by summoning his own army, and he suggested that David get out of here as quickly as possible. But David did not listen. He swung his club, striking. Everything around sparkled. Flashes and lightning appeared, and the knights fell dead. The strongest mage in the royal family, Abracadabra, cast a spell of destruction magic. The magic rose up like a pillar and began to form, but David shattered the spell into pieces with one blow. Abracadabra was shocked that he was able to interrupt her most ancient and greatest spell. She gathered all her royal mages and planned to strike, but David beat her to it. He was one against millions. He struck, and all was quiet. The hero decided that it was not as spectacular as he wanted, but it was definitely a disaster. The United Forces Guild was smashed to the ground. Among the broken and dead players of the guild, the king of the United Forces sat and lamented that this could not happen. David approached him and said that he would not kill him. But then, the hero remembered that he had shot him with a bow and struck. This battle became the greatest and was on everyone's lips that day. And not only on the lips of Chrono Life players, but also of participants in other games. Even on the lips of those people who did not participate in or were not interested in games at all. David stood in the middle of the battlefield, and Urus was amazed at how he did it, and how it was even possible. And then she came to them. Angela, the goddess of life. David was surprised that someone was still alive, and it was annoying. She came up to him and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and called him Mr. Loser. Who knew that this is where they would meet? The sun was setting over an endless expanse strewn with the bodies of 3 million people. There were countless swords and spears scattered across the ground. This is where Angela and David met. He remembered everything she had done to him, and he wanted revenge. Angela said that fate had brought them together, but David wouldn't listen. He didn't accept her tricks. He knew she was looking for him to kill. David said he would split her skull open right now. But first he wanted to know something. He asked why Angela's hair was different, and she replied that she had sacrificed it to become the goddess of life. And that's why her hair color changed. David was surprised why she got the title of Goddess of Life for killing 1,000 players, and not Goddess of Death. She thought it was funny. But David said enough. He found out what he wanted and swung his club, made a precise strike, and finally destroyed this herring. It was a great strike. But when the dust settled, Angela stood in the crevice where she had been struck, alive and unharmed. He didn't understand anything because his blow was precise and he didn't miss. She told David that he couldn't kill her because she is the goddess of life, and a mere mortal is not capable of killing the goddess, no matter how strong he is. And Angela saw Eurus. The dragon was surprised that someone else besides the master could see him. David struck again, harder. The whole planet shook from his blow. Urus was afraid that it would destroy the planet. But Angela was safe and sound and told him not to bother, since he would never be able to defeat her anyway. She flew up, flapping her wings like an angel, and landed on the ground, and continued to mock David. She said that he probably thought about her every minute of his life in order to take revenge. He needs to come to terms with the fact that no matter how much time passes, no matter how strong he becomes, he will never be able to kill her. And then David said that he would break and destroy the entire planet. And even if Angela didn't die from the explosion, she would end up in open space, which is also not good. She objected that in that case he would destroy himself too. But David boldly replied that she was threatening someone who had nothing to lose. Angela didn't believe that a mere mortal could do that. But David began to calculate the force of the blow. She tried to stop him, but he hit the ground with his club with all his might. The planet crumbled into pieces like a watermelon, a flash, lightning, and it exploded into pieces. Meanwhile, there were players in the game capsule's hall. The admin was dozing peacefully at his desk, and then all the players were kicked out of the Chronolife game. They were outraged and attacked the admin, saying that it was his fault or the lack of electricity. The admin reassured everyone that it was not his fault or their company's. No one could understand the reason. Perhaps there were problems on the game server. And then everyone got a message on the Chronolife page that they were having technical problems. There was a devastating glitch, and the team is working on fixing it. But one game capsule was occupied. Synchronization with the system, client identification, and counting the number of players on the server were in progress. There was one player on the server, and it was David. He was somewhere like a matrix, and he couldn't figure out what it was. He was just on ST-389. And then a male voice said that yes, this was the same planet he had just destroyed. There was a guy next to him who said that it was the most beautiful planet in the fourth universe, his mother's favorite planet. David asked who this guy was. He replied that he was the creator. The hero agreed with him, was not surprised, and asked if he had seen a chick with black hair. But the creator replied that they were alone here, and there was no one else here. And David doesn't need to pretend to be a fool. After all, it was he who destroyed everyone with one blow. And no one could survive such a massive explosion. David was terribly happy that no one and nothing was left alive. He was a superstar. He had taken revenge on everyone. After all, this is why he plays online games. The hero was happy. He called the Urus to share his joy with him. He called him, but he did not appear. The creator reminded him that there were two of them here, and no one else, not even the dragon, was here. David couldn't figure out what this guy was doing here, because there was only one player on the server, and it was him. He even asked who this guy was. The guy tried to tell him who he was, but then there was interference. The guy started to disappear and managed to tell David to say hello to Furry, and the guy disappeared, and James was kicked out of the game. In the game capsule hall, David exited the game, took off his VR glasses, and opened the capsule. He was very angry. He didn't understand who this guy was, why he showed up, why he was kicked out of the game, and who Furry was. At that moment, he saw a respectable man with a beard and in a white suit sitting in the hall with 2 guards. He stood up and walked up to the player, saying that he was David, and he was 21 years old and had been playing Chrono Life for exactly 3 months. His favorite weapon was a wooden club. David thought that maybe this was Furry. He asked him who he was, and the man answered that he was the one who came for his wooden club. In real life, David was a college student and a fan of the game Chrono Life. During his time playing the game, he never managed to rise above the amateur level. But David was lucky, and he was able to upgrade a regular baton to level 99 plus and give it to everyone he didn't like. And Angela, too. Then a guy showed up who called himself the creator and immediately disappeared. And now he's been caught and taken to some cafe with a bunch of security. He was sitting at a table with a man in a white suit who was questioning him. The man forced David to eat, assuring him that the food was excellent. He ate and did not understand what was happening. He told him that when he was a pauper, he often came to eat at this pub. That was about 15 years ago. The man founded his company at a time when Chrono Life was still in the development stage. He introduced himself as the president of Chrono Life, and his name was Abram Jones. David sighed with relief. He thought that these were some mafiosi, and why so many guards? But they were not guards, but employees. Among them were the character developer, sound engineer, head of marketing, and others. David asked why the president needed him, and he reminded him that he had come for his level 99 baton. Jones said it was normal practice for a manager to take an item with a bug. But David countered that it wasn't a bug, he had upgraded it himself. Abram replied that the probability of successful improvement after the 10th time is only 3%. And then this probability decreases even more. And he's forced to confiscate David's club. That's what he was instructed to say in the company. But he thought it was unfair to do so and conducted his own investigation. Abram came to the conclusion that the club was not a bug at all, and he decided that he would not interfere and leave David alone. Despite the fact that he killed the strongest monster in the game, 3 million players, and destroyed the planet. He is a user and has the right to freedom of action. And he suggested that David add candy to his soup. It will be his choice. And at that moment, the cook rushed in and hit the president on the head, saying that he had gone crazy and wanted to ruin her wonderful soup with candy. David put candy in his soup and found himself in the game. He sat on a hill and watched as a group of players fought a monster, Gordas. Level 21. The girl player with the call sign, Love. She swung a fiery sword and threw a fiery projectile at the monster. Everything worked out. Then she attacked the monster alone, and he threw her on his horns. She fell and lost consciousness. And everyone started running away. David sat and did not know what to do next. When he heard the voice of the dragon Eurus behind him, he wondered what the owner would do. David held the club in his hands and remembered the story with the soup. Meanwhile, the monster left, and the players began to offend Love, saying that she is a bad player, and because of her, they will now have to postpone the hunt. And it would be better if they did not accept this fool into their game. David remembered Jones telling him in the pub that Chrono Life was a great game. Freedom, romance, an open world. There was no other fantasy world like it. He asked David for only one thing: not to destroy this world, just to enjoy his stay in it. During this time, the players continued to humiliate and insult Love and began to spit on her, and they expelled her from the team. And David thought, what romance? In Chrono Life, the strongest survives, and that's the main rule. He decided to take everything from life, as best he can, and he wanted to catch up with the girl's offenders and punish them, but then he heard her crying and cursing at the players, saying that they didn't understand anything about weapons, and she spent all her gold on this sword. David recognized himself in her. These were his words. He also said when players offended him, Love shouted that she didn't need any team and that she would go on raids alone. And she walked away. And then suddenly, the monster Gordas appeared in front of her. And behind him, a whole herd of the same monsters. She held her breath. She would not survive. And then suddenly David appeared between her and the monsters. He swung his club, struck one blow from below, and all the monsters disappeared. David couldn't understand why he did this, whether it was sympathy or pity that made him do this. He concluded that he did it just for fun. A little bit of epic action, and that's it. That's the prologue. David greeted Love and invited her to play Teamka with him, thinking that now his story had truly begun. But suddenly, the girl responded rudely, telling him to go to hell, and said that she doesn't communicate with noobs. She turned around and left. David was puzzled, and he thought that the beginning was not very bright. Meanwhile, the whole world was reading the news. A grand event had happened. It was called the Day of Judgment. The end of the world. All gamers in the world were discussing this incident. Battles in Chrono Life. First battle, 800,000 victims. Second battle, 3 million. Everyone wondered who he was. A psychopathic genocide. A master of murder. A god of war? He is undoubtedly the strongest in Chrono Life, and many players considered him a bug or a cheater. They demanded justice. Well, it was impossible to destroy so many players by honest means, by one person. They demanded that it be deleted, that the account be blocked forever, and they called for action from the developers of Chrono Life. Everyone was waiting for a response from the Chrono Life administration, and the response came. An official statement. It stated that no game violations were found. The final investigation revealed that the character was not a cheater and his weapon was not bugged. His actions do not violate the rules of the Chrono Life game. And that was the end of the matter. People all over the world were discussing that the Chrono Life server had crashed, and the game wasn't working, and all because of that character who had killed 3 million players. Nobody knew what he looked like, since in the photos in the ads he was barely recognizable and had a hood on. Meanwhile, David followed behind Love as she walked away. She turned and snapped at him for following her. The hero replied that he was going after her since they should have been playing together for a long time, but she objected that she did not agree and would never agree to play with an exhibitionist who also fought with some kind of stick. David objected that he was not an exhibitionist, and she then asked why he was wearing only his underwear under his coat. And she doesn't play with newbies. He couldn't understand why she was acting like that. After all, he had saved her from the monsters. But Urus replied that when he was fighting, Love had closed her eyes in fear and hadn't seen anything. And David decided that he needed to take advantage of the situation, since she didn't know how strong he was. He caught up with her and pretended to be a newbie in the game. He tearfully begged her to teach him the rules of this game, and he called her a teacher, sensei. Urus was confused and asked what the owner was doing, and he answered that he was acting like a noob. He was pretending to be a weakling. The girl was embarrassed, she was flattered, and she agreed to teach the noob how to play, and invited him to her team, but only once. She was level 24, a master of hand-to-hand combat. They headed towards the cave in front of the city of Front. There, level 4 bare hairs were waiting for them. Love used her abilities very skillfully and fought the monsters. She used her weapon, Dive Dragon Kick. David and the Urus sat to the side and watched the battle. The hero thought that she fought well, but he couldn't let the monsters surround him. To this, Urus replied that she had a very good weapon, and it cost 10 million, and the rest of the equipment cost about 100 million. David was amazed. 100 million real won. So she wasn't a noob. Where did she get all that stuff? While he was wondering where she got so much money for equipment, Love came up to him and yelled at him. Should she really have to carry everything? And he, a pauper, will just sit there and chill? And she demanded that he work with his club. David objected that how could he do anything with a simple club? But she was adamant and said that they needed to fight to level up. Otherwise, he will be scraping the bottom all the time. And that's not how a team behaves. He doesn't do anything at all. While she was indignant, a bear hair came up from behind and hovered over her head. David lightly hit the monster on the head with his club. It simply exploded and disappeared. Love didn't understand anything and asked where the wind in the cave was coming from. She received a message. Someone was calling her to real life. Love said that she needed to log out for a while and would be back later, in half an hour. And she ordered him to practice for now, and left. David wondered who she was in real life, if she had the ability to spend 100 million on gold. Most likely she was born with a golden spoon in her mouth. Meanwhile, Love came out of Chrono Life. She was lying on the bed in the room and took off her VR glasses. A woman came into her room and started yelling at her that it was time, but she was still playing her games. Or maybe she wanted to be out of work? The woman warned her that she should not wear VR glasses over her prescription glasses. As a result, streaks and traces of wear may remain. But the girl objected that there was no need to yell at her like that. And anyway, the woman would now do her makeup, and everything would be hidden. And if she takes off her glasses, she might have a panic attack. Love sat down at the dressing table, and the woman did her makeup and hair. The host of the festival appeared on stage and announced that the winner of the first place in the charts for 13 weeks would now appear before the audience. Popular solo idol, the best voice in the world, Anna Sarang. And Love came on stage, singer and composer, and no one knew about her hobby, passion for online games. Meanwhile, while waiting for his sensei, David decided to practice the game to be able to hide his strength. He learned how to strike without killing. The creator observed everything that was happening and noticed that this was a very interesting practice. Anna Sarang was 17 years old. She was in the second grade of high school. She came to the music industry when she was still a baby. It was difficult. Popularity has passed her by. But now she is called the best idol and singer-songwriter. She often appeared on television and gave interviews. Journalists were interested in how she managed to hold the top spot in the charts for 14 weeks in a row. And how does she manage to write such touching lines in songs? Anna said that she likes to be home alone and reads poetry and fairy tales. The manager listened to her interview and scolded her for deceiving the entire country. Talking about poetry and fairy tales, when in fact she is passionate about online games. Anna was not only a singer, but also an actress. Her last role was a foul-mouthed high school student. She told the journalist that it was a difficult role for her, and she had never sworn so much in her life. At the same time, in the game, Anna threw out all her negativity and relieved stress in the game. She screamed terribly at David, saying that he was a bastard in his underwear and why he didn't greet his boss. She nicknamed him Panties and yelled at him all the time. David thought it was hard for him to endure all this, but he had to go all the way. And he did. As they walked and Love teased David, they were watched by men in hooded cloaks. They were talking among themselves that they had found her. They needed to gather all the guild members in this dungeon. Today, they would carry out justice. At that moment, a bear hair appeared in front of Love, and she ordered the Panties to defeat him. David rushed into battle. He swung his club, calculating his strength so that it barely touched the monster and it fell to the ground. But it was still alive. The task of fighting without killing was accomplished. Boss Love praised him for putting down the hair with one blow and said that he, Panties, became very strong. At that moment, there was a clang of a sword, and Love barely dodged the blow and pulled David away. It was a man in a hooded cloak. Did he tell Love she was gorgeous? Or was it just the gear? She asked who they were, and the man answered that he was Pain. It was the head of the Halasan Volcano Guild, Mr. Kim. With him were other members of the guild. They rushed into battle with Love. She told the Panties that it was dangerous here and ordered them to hide behind her back. A fight broke out. Love used the technique of kicking a diving dragon. David sat with the Eurus to the side and watched what was happening. The guys from the Halasan Guild decided to get even with Love and take revenge for their previous losses. But they were too weak, and Love herself defeated the group of level 20 players. Mr. Kim stood to the side and told the girl standing next to him that everything was going according to plan. Love was distracted, and it was time to act. The girl flew up to Love and used her weapon, fighter class bare hands, steel. And Love's knuckles disappeared from her palms, and they ended up in the girl's arms. She told Love that she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. and the knuckle dusters cost 10,700 zlotas. David saw the thief class's steal skill for the first time. Urus objected that it was all strange and shouldn't be like that. But the hero had nothing to fear, since he had nothing anyway. Only his underpants and a cloak. Mr. Kim told his girlfriend that the guy, referring to David, hanging around here should go away. He has nothing to take anyway. But the girl said that stealing from a beggar was even more fun. She approached David with the intention of taking the club, and he decided that it was not the time to hide. But, before he could do anything, the thief girl held a club in her hands and told David that she would steal his cloak next, and he would be left in his underwear. David was in shock. His club was taken away from him. He did not know what to do. And then a huge two-headed dragon Urus appeared from the club. He asked the thief how she, a mere mortal, dared to touch him, and he struck her with his club. The girl fell, and David picked up his club from the ground. The soul of Urus refused to surrender to the enemy. This weapon belongs only to David, and only he is the master of the dragon. Meanwhile, the thief came to her senses and could not understand what it was, whether it was a vision, but too realistic. The guild leader called out to her. He ordered her to do her job. And at that moment, Love pounced on her. She demanded that she return the stolen equipment, but the thief said that the guild leader had her knuckles. Love screamed that she would kill them all. And at that moment, David lightly hit her with his club, and she lost consciousness. He learned to hit and not kill. The thief and the guild leader were shocked. They asked why he did it, because they were supposedly together and one team. David told them that he was hiding his power, but they did not understand his words, and then he attacked them with a club. He laid them all out, but didn't kill them. The thief raised her head and called him names. David said that he had been through so much and had become stronger than her psychologically, but nevertheless, she almost gave him a heart attack. He couldn't help himself and hit her with the baton. A flash, and she disappeared. Meanwhile, Love came to her senses. She was lying on the grass in a clearing not far from the cave. David was sitting leaning against a tree trunk and chewing a chicken leg. She asked the panties what had happened and where they were. David replied that the villains had already left. She wondered how they had just left. She had her knuckle dusters on her hands. Love was very puzzled, but it didn't matter what happened. The fact remained that they would come back for her. David asked Love what kind of guild Halasan was. She explained that he, Panties, should not act like a hero, otherwise he could die. But nevertheless, she decided to tell him everything, and asked if he had ever heard of P2W players. David said no, and asked what it was. Urus explained to him that this is pay to win, a term from online games. People from 30 to 50 years old play this. P2W players bring the main income to the company. They are rich people who achieve success in the game not through achievements, but by purchasing the most expensive armor and weapons. They spend between 30 million and 10 billion won on in-game purchases. Love explained that the Halasan Guild is the P2W players. A few months ago, she bought a pair of knuckle dusters at an auction, purely by accident. And since then, the guild has been hunting her to get the knuckle dusters. However, due to the lack of skill of these players, Love always defeats them in any skirmish. She asked David how he managed to get the brass knuckles back. He replied that everyone had run away and probably forgotten about the knuckle dusters, and he picked them up. Love was surprised. She said that this old man had become simply possessed. David asked why the guild wanted to take the knuckle dusters. Love replied that it was obvious, since they were worth 10 million, and he thought it was very strange that old men who spent billions on the game were so worried about 10 million won knuckle dusters. There must be something else for it. Meanwhile, the guildmaster Halasan came to their hideout. The owner stood in the center of the room. He pushed the guildmaster to the floor. He fell and begged for mercy. He asked to give him another chance and the opportunity to fix everything. But the chieftain objected that there was no time for that, and they were no good for anything. The leader will entrust this mission to the 4 divine kings, and then the kings entered the room. The second of the 4 kings had a capital of 1.7 billion. He asked the leader why he was keeping this small fry with 100 million gold, meaning the guild leader. How could he be with the divine kings? The third of the 4 kings had a capital of 1.4 billion. He also said that this petty chief was the cause of all their troubles, and only the first of the 4 kings stood and silently looked around suspiciously and arrogantly. His net worth is 2.1 billion. The second king said that the minor chieftain was doomed to fail because he had gotten involved with a mercenary. The first king said that he would take care of the matter personally. They really needed the silent knuckles. And he said that half a day would be enough for him to get them. The guild leader, Mr. King, agreed. He was pleased. His net worth is 12 billion. King told the first king to go and show everyone what he can do. At that moment, David came into their room. He laughed very hard and loudly. At the same time, he was picking his nose. He laughed that they were like children. 4 divine kings. Mr. King asked who he was. David said he should figure it out for himself. At that moment, he shot him with a booger from his nose. The leader was furious. David said that if they continued to bother Boss Love, it would be difficult for him to hide his power. Mr. King ordered the kings to destroy the impudent man, and they rushed at David. He swung his club and destroyed 3 kings one by one. The leader ordered all the guild members to rush to the attack. David shouted that if they wanted to kill him, they needed at least 3 million people. And he started hitting him with his baton. Everything around was sparkling. David was delivering precise blows, calculating his strength. The Halasan Guild was being destroyed. Guildmaster Kim told Mr. King that he must flee immediately, or he would die. Aside from Mr. Kim and his subordinates, all members of their guild are donators. Even newbies spend at least 10 million. The top 5 guilds can't look down on them. But what kind of guy is this? Who is he? That he can handle everyone so easily, and no one can resist him. How does he do it? There are rumors about panties, about a wooden club. Mr. King started playing in the 2nd grade. The games used to be easier, but leveling up was harder. But it was fun and interesting. His parents scolded him for sitting all day playing games, and with his friends, he could lose on the internet all weekend. But the years passed. Many responsibilities appeared, and there was no time even for memories. But he came to his senses, and he decided to reward himself for his hard work with memories. King was the CEO of a large company. He was already over 40. He ordered his subordinate to get a computer like the one he had as a child and started playing on it. To the subordinate's objections that this was old stuff and there were more modern computers, Mr. King replied that the main thing was the atmosphere. It was as if he had returned to his carefree childhood. But Mr. King was not the only one who had changed under the weight of time. No more effort was needed. Just 2 mouse clicks, money, and you have everything. Those who do not spend in the game, they are oppressed. The motto is pay to win, pay for the victory, invest money to win. All the games he studied were the same. And here is the final one, Chrono Life. No matter how, but he wanted to find something long forgotten from the past. And at that moment, David struck Mr. King with his club. He fought without killing. That was the end of the Halasan Guild. David told them not to bother Boss Love as it was annoying, and said goodbye to them, hoping he would never see them again, and headed for the exit. But Mr. King found the strength to stand up and say after David that it was he who destroyed the 5 best guilds in the game and killed 3 million players of the World Alliance. King asked how much money David spent in the game, because for such power you need a lot of it. He said that soon David would realize that he had spent too much effort and money searching for something that did not exist. Trusiki asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. King did not let up and asked how much David spent, tens or hundreds of billions. But Panties calmly replied that it cost him 55,000 won to buy the basic warrior equipment. And he left. Mr. King burst into hysterical laughter and said that the game was quite funny. At that moment, Angela entered the guild's lair. She had been walking nearby, humming a song while the battle was going on. The girl asked Mr. King how things were going, and the lair is in a very sad state. Angela asked how the preparations were going, and King replied that they were going well. It's all in the past. He leaves, and he breaks the agreement with Angela. The girl said that if that's the case, she'll kill them all and cut Mr. King in half. Then she went to the head of the guild and killed him too. She was awarded points, as if she had destroyed the Halasan Guild. She already had 999,000 combat experience points. Angela heard and remembered David's words about love, and it wouldn't leave her head. David was walking through the forest with Urus, and the system congratulated him, saying that he had reached the maximum level. He decided to check his status and was surprised. The status says that he is a newbie, and his level is 999. David analyzed that at the beginning of the story, he was level 7. Then, on the first day of receiving the club, he killed 800,000 players. He gained the experience of the strongest boss, Urus, and his army. Then, he destroyed 3 million players of the world's strongest guilds. And of course, destroying the planet raised his level. The world's first master-level player has appeared, and the master will be sent to transcendental space. Love was lying in the clearing. She was bored. David said he needed to go away for a while, but he never showed up. She wondered where those panties were hanging out. But she is kind. She will wait another hour. Meanwhile, David found himself in some strange place. It was an island flying in the sky. Urus replied that David was quite popular, and then they heard a voice that said, "Welcome." He didn't think he would meet David so soon. This was the guide of the best, the god of excellence. He highly appreciated the hero's journey to the level of master with novice. This is worthy of respect. He fulfilled all the necessary conditions, and the transition to the hidden class began. Transformations began, and the soul of the sword penetrated his body. Then the soul of the shield, the soul of the bow, the soul of the knuckles, the soul of the club penetrated. The souls of all the weapons penetrated David's body. The change of profession was complete. He infiltrated the hidden class and gained the status of a novice master. All stats were reset, and unused points were tripled. It came out to 14,985 points. Urus asked if it was a transition bug. For each transition, he should have received 5 points, but he received 15. Even if another user with the maximum level shows up, he will have 3 times fewer points than David. This will go down in community history as the greatest achievement. And David began distributing his points. Urus scolded that they should be distributed wisely, but the owner spent all the points on improving one characteristic. Urus asked why this one, but David said he didn't need any other characteristics. He only needed this one. The dragon decided that the owner had screwed up. He was a confirmed loser after all. Meanwhile, an employee entered the office of the CEO of Chrono Life and said that the director needs to see this, about that user. They led the director into the room and showed on the monitor that the newcomer had reached the maximum level. But it wasn't just that. It was that he dumped all his points into one characteristic, and it was unclear why exactly into this one. The president clarified what the fuss was about and what characteristic the user had chosen. When he saw it, he burst out laughing and said that this guy truly enjoys the game and wants to live it to the fullest in his own way. But the employee clarified that this is no laughing matter. This makes the user third-rate trash with no opportunity for further growth. And when he realizes that he has created garbage, he can do anything in a fit of anger. The president said not to pay attention, and he said many times that the company cannot interfere with the player's choice. He turned around and went back to his office. He thought that it seemed like the worst, strongest character in the history of vertical reality games had appeared. The God of Excellence spoke to David. He was giving him just one chance. He had the right to receive one of the God's most superior weapons. David thought he was lucky. And since it was free, he saw no reason to refuse. But which weapon to choose? They were all excellent, and David decided and said, "Give him everything." But the God of Excellence said that he could not fulfill his request, and excessive greed leads to great anger. He would have to choose wisely. But David replied that God would give him all the weapons, but either for free or after he beat him. The CEO of Chrono Life was convinced that this user was crazy. The employees were shocked. The God of Supremacy was angry. Panties realized that a fight was brewing. God became furious and struck David, and he disappeared. The God of Excellence said he never thought he would kill the superior with his own hands. And then David appeared, whole and invisible. He said it was painful, probably because he was a god. He increased his characteristics in the Con category: health, physical condition, endurance. This characteristic affects health and affects the speed of recovery. Gives resistance to effects that impose status. By increasing this stat to this level, David gained a hidden healing skill. After any damage, full recovery is guaranteed. Complete immunity to poisons, diseases, paralysis, etc. And David remembered Urus saying that his character had become trash, and that now he wouldn't be able to have any other equipment. But Trusiki replied that a club was quite enough for him. The God of Supremacy was furious at the antics of this mortal, and he struck again, leaving a huge hole in David's chest. But the hero quickly healed, enraging God. David said that Chrono Life is divine. The God of Supremacy dealt one blow after another, but David was unfazed. He said it was time to end it. God should give up the weapon and get out of here. He said that greed would one day destroy David, and Trusiki struck with a club. The God of Transcendence ceased to exist. The transcendental space was destroyed, and David returned to the main world. Upon his return, the hero noticed that all the god's excellent weapons now belonged to him. It was moved to subspace and would come to David's aid at the first call. He was happy. Meanwhile, Love was furious about David's absence, saying that she would never forgive him for waiting so long, and when Panties appeared in the clearing, she hit him with all her anger. Love was angry and shouted that he asked to wait for him a little, but it was already evening. He made excuses that he was delayed, that he thought he would be back soon. She freaked out and left. She said she was logging out and added that tomorrow at 7:30 she would log into the game after work, and for him to come in, and if he was late, she would kill him. David also decided to leave the game, since in reality it was already midnight. He logged out and left. David left the game capsule and headed home. He had very little money. He would have to take on another part-time job to earn at least a little more. He walked and thought that since all the armor in the game was so expensive, maybe he could sell all the excellent weapons. And since the knuckle dusters cost 10 million, there is an opportunity to earn a lot of real money. He is tired of this endless poverty. The first Chrono Life players named one location in the game Forbidden Place, on the border between life and death, the grave of all mortals, a top-tier hunting ground that no one has been able to clear so far. This is the Chrono Life location where the dragon Urus lives, the Valley of the Dead. David came to Urus's house and decided to be under his care for a while. He was blinded by the mess and did not think about collecting the items. He just left them here. He decided that today he needed to work hard, and that this day would be the beginning of his worthless, poor life. David decided to make a lot of money and become rich in the blink of an eye. In the Valley of the Dead, there were 3 monsters: Turbot of Despair, Lapis of the Abyss, and Trizion of the Dawn. The hero destroyed them in 2 blows, 3 of the strongest of Urus's army. All the monsters in the Valley of the Dead were killed. He did it pretty quickly. And then valuable items and armor fell from the sky like rain. Urus praised him for finishing everything quickly. But David objected that he had only just begun. But suddenly, all the mobs respawned. Respawn is the revival of monsters at the place of death after a certain time. But special creatures do not resurrect. David was selling things for the first time, and I thought, maybe it's worth farming 100 times in reserve. Once at Harvard University, they gave an interesting lecture about Bill Gates. billionaire and founder of Microsoft. One day, on his way to work, he saw a $100 bill on the ground, and he didn't understand it from the ground. Since it would take 2 seconds to lift it, and he earns at least $150 per second, so by lifting it, he would lose $200. However, considering the delay in resurrecting the monsters, it took David about an hour to kill them. But in the end, the value of the items was about 15 billion won. Based on the above lecture, we can calculate that Bill Gates earns about $500 million per hour. And a simple South Korean part-time worker in a store earned more in an hour than the richest person. So David went into a Gucci store and bought himself some cool clothes and shoes for a few million. And now, he's racing around town in a brand new yellow Lamborghini. He got so carried away by the drive that he crashed into a pole and wrecked a $400 million car. He was terribly upset, but then he thought about it and decided that he could buy himself a new one. People walked down the street and looked at him and his new car. He was cool and rich. Meanwhile, Chrono Life president Abram Jones was in a dejected state. A subordinate reported to him that the company was in a sad state. The value of the items belonging to David was 15 billion. They are all of the highest quality. Due to the rapid changes in the game, the company's stock price began to fall rapidly. The president asked if it was possible to block this user's transactions, but the subordinate replied that it was not possible at the moment. And then the phone rang. It was David calling Abram Jones. He said hello, said he was going to spend a lot of money, and asked the president if he could buy something for himself. Abram was furious. He yelled into the phone that because of that bastard David, his income was approaching zero. And he hung up. The hero was sitting behind the wheel of an expensive car and wondering what else he should buy. After all, he had already bought a car, branded clothes, a watch, and so on. He had everything. And then he remembered that he had forgotten the most important thing. He had not bought himself a home. And then he chose and bought himself a super luxury apartment in a skyscraper. He decided that when he moved, he absolutely had to meet his neighbor. He took a piece of rice cake and went to meet him. It is a long-standing tradition in Korea to treat new neighbors with rice cake when moving in. It is a symbol of friendship and brings good luck to the new home. He rang the neighbor's doorbell, and lo and behold, it opened, and Love, who was the owner of this apartment, appeared on the threshold. At this point in Chrono Life, the character came to the Valley of the Dead. The monsters said how he, a mere mortal, dared to come here. He destroyed all 3 of the strongest monsters in the Eurus army, and they lost the ability to be resurrected. The character absorbed the target's level, its characteristics and information about the 3 strongest monsters of the Death Valley were completely deleted. This character was Hurakan, the second, lost head of Urus. He was born to exterminate all people. David stood at the threshold of Love's apartment. This was the first time he had met her in real life. She thanked him politely for the pie, saying that she would be happy to eat it. The hero recognized her as the famous singer Anna Sarang. He did not know that it was Love, since players cannot know who is who in reality. Anna closed the door. She didn't recognize David either, but she thought she had seen him somewhere before. They didn't recognize each other, because players are different from real people. Back at the apartment, she treated her manager to a pie, saying that her new neighbor had brought it. The manager told her to change into her school uniform. Anna objected that she had just come from school, and why get dressed again? But the manager replied that, of course, it could be postponed. But Love herself wanted to finish filming early and be in the game at 7:30. Anna remembered that she had promised the panties to meet, and she hurried to change. The manager, after observing her, concluded that she had definitely met someone special in the game. Who was this lucky guy who stole Sarang's heart? David returned to the Valley of Death, but there were no mobs there. He asked Urus what happened, where they ran to. But he answered that it was impossible. Their movement area is limited by the program, and they could not escape unless some kind of bug occurred, but they disappeared without a trace. Trusiki decided that in principle it was not so important, it was not the only hunting ground, and he could use other locations to earn money. Urus reminded David that he had to meet Love at 7:30. He decided that the hunt was over for the day and headed to meet Love. Urus felt a familiar but menacing aura. He couldn't understand what it was. Huracan, the second head of Urus, found a new victim. It was the giant snow snake Eleros, level 190. Summon boss. He destroyed the monster. But it wasn't enough. He must gain enough strength to destroy the human creature named David. He has a long way to go. At that moment, the goddess of life, Angela, appeared. She asked Huracan if he had eaten well. He had already gone very far. She did not expect anything else from her child. He replied that he had eaten well, but it was still not enough, and she seemed very appetizing to him. And he tried to eat Angela. The absorption failed and was ruined. Angela was outraged by such an outburst of her cub. Huracan was sure that he had swallowed it and was surprised by its presence. He decided that it was probably inedible. She pointed him to the location and told him to go there. There was plenty of food there, and he happily went there. He was born to exterminate all people. Huracan attacked the city and began to exterminate all living things. He devoured target after target. People were terrified, not understanding what was happening. All players became food for Huracan. It was a frontline village. Both newbies and professionals worked there. There were many newcomers, as well as high-level and top players. He destroyed them all. All characters of the absorbed players were removed from the game. An employee burst into the office of the president of Chrono Life and reported that the flow of complaints from users does not stop in all communities in the Koala Center, on YouTube. Customer support is paralyzed. The character was deleted when killed by a monster. This was beyond all bounds. Chrono Life must have gone crazy. The game's popularity was falling. It turned into shit. People were outraged and left the game. The president ordered to monitor 2 characters in the game. One of them is Huracan, and the second is... Angela was delighted with her creation. She couldn't believe her eyes that it had swallowed up an entire village. The frontline village became a ghost village overnight. Huracan said that this was still not enough for him and asked where he could find more food. But Angela thought about it and replied that she didn't know where else to get some food. And then she said that there was one very tasty and nutritious character. Meanwhile, the clock read 1934. Love was in the game. But David was still not there. She thought he was coming. She screamed that she would kill him and swore at him for being late. But it wasn't Trusiki who approached her. It was Huracan. Fighter Love was level 24, and Huracan was level 999. Shortly before this moment in the village, a monster appeared in the central square. The players were outraged, as the village was a safe zone. It was home to a top player and the supreme commander of the Hawkeye Alliance of the 5 largest guilds. He was unrivaled in Chrono Life, possessed stunning charisma. After the end of the World Guild Union was disbanded. Hawkeye hit rock bottom after taking all the blame and responsibility on himself. Every guild in the world was at his feet, and now he's at rock bottom. He witnessed a scene after which most of the players were removed. He couldn't understand what had happened, because it couldn't be. It was beyond all bounds. Huracan stood in front of Love. She was confused, trying to understand who was in front of her. He didn't look like a player, and there were no monsters on this hill. Meanwhile, the goddess of life Angela turned to Anna, asking if she was Love's boss. Anna was surprised. How did she know? Because only Panties calls her that. Angela asked if Love and Panties were close, to which Anna replied that they had only recently started playing together, and she didn't really like the clingy one. But he was very persistent. The goddess of life said that Love irritated her. And at that moment, Huracan pierced her with his tentacle. Angela wanted her dead. Huracan swallowed Love, and noticed that what he ate was very tasty. Angela noticed that of course it was tasty, since Love is a piece of God. At that moment, David appeared with a club and Urus. The goddess said that she hadn't seen Mr. Loser for a long time. She asked how he was doing. Panties ordered her to shut up and remove her dirty pig hooves from Love's belt, which was lying on the ground. Angela said she had stepped on it by accident. David decided to destroy Huracan first. He struck hard. and turned to Angela. He gave her one last chance to crawl away like a battering ram, her paws flashing. She laughed and told him not to pretend that he was so strong. After all, she couldn't be killed anyway. Angela laughed and said to finish the work first. Hurakan appeared again in front of David. She introduced him as her son. The monster attacked David. Urus was scared, but he was safe. He quickly recovered, and only a scar from the claws remained on his stomach. David was surprised that the monster survived, but he replied that he dodged the blow. Panties thought that he needed to hit harder and activated a special skill, the spirit of the swordsman. He only had one chance to use his sword skill, and he decided to use it for the first time. He activated Continuous Slash. This skill continuously cuts the enemy. Basic swordsman skill. Meanwhile, the online broadcast began. The Supreme Commander of the World Guild Union, Hawkeye, went live. This was a built-in Chrono Life feature for in-game broadcasts. It can be used by any user, and Hawkeye began his report. He said that during the Doomsday, the World Guild Alliance did not use the broadcast to successfully complete the raid operation. The identity of the wanted man has not been determined to this day. 1 man against 3 million. Is that possible? Most likely it is a bug or a hacker. But the company denies it in every way. They hide a lot. Just look at the notice board. Many characters have been deleted by the monster. What the hell is this? He called on everyone whose characters were deleted to join the broadcast. Hawkeye was currently tracking this monster. He promised to make a full disclosure. He promised to reveal all the hidden truth of this rotten gaming company. Well, and having stopped, he reminded that no one should forget to subscribe and like. David couldn't believe that Hurakan had dodged all his blows. He was safe and sound. Trusiki asked where he came from, who he was. Hurakan replied that his goal is to destroy humanity. He is the strongest boss, the lost head of Urus. And then Urus realized what a familiar energy he felt. He wasn't imagining it. He warned David to be careful. And maybe this bastard is behind the destruction of monsters in the Valley of the Dead and the death of Boss Love. These words enraged David, and when Hurakan attacked him, shouting, "I will kill you," he gave him a non-fatal blow with a baton. And he managed to wound him. And David started to strike. He delivered non-lethal blows one after another. He used a version of continuous rupture. It was a brutal fight. Hawkeye was approaching the scene. He saw the fight and showed it to all users in a live broadcast. The number of viewers of the broadcast was constantly growing. It was gaining popularity. The commander-in-chief immediately recognized David. After all, it was he who shot an arrow at him from a bow, and then David punished him. All the players saw who was the cause of the end of the world. Hawkeye couldn't believe that he was facing the worst player at the worst time, in the worst place. He pulled the bowstring and was about to launch an arrow, but at that moment, the player characters began to resurrect. David struck one blow after another, and the Hurakan gradually lost its strength. And the stolen souls were returned to their owners. His level was constantly decreasing, his strength and power too. Also, his skill points. David noticed that Hurakan had slowed down a lot and was no longer dodging his attacks. Urus explained to David that the energy he had absorbed had returned to its owners. An employee of Chrono Life realized that the player's data was not deleted, but rather placed in the horn of Hurakan. They discussed this with the director. David realized that since Hurakan was losing and giving away energy, if he finished him off, the boss character Love would also return. Trusiki continued to strike. Hurakan's level kept dropping, and players kept resurrecting. Players began to rave about David on air. They realized that he had restored their characters. Anna was watching the broadcast attentively. She saw everything and recognized Trusiki. She was very worried about him. Almost all of Hurakan's energy was gone. He was barely alive. David was about to wrap it up, but then the monster gathered his last strength, struck and swallowed the panties. The audience was shocked, especially Love. Hurakan said that it was very tasty, and he had never eaten anything more delicious. He completely restored his strength to level 999. Urus sat, almost crying, and sadly looked at the level 99 dub, which was lying on the ground. And David was gone. This wasn't enough for Huracan. He's a glutton. He wants to destroy all of humanity. And at that moment, the healing factor activated. Huracan's belly swelled terribly and increased in size, turning into a huge ball, and from it appeared a head and a neck. The neck was very long and looked down on the monster from above. David was healing. He had endless restoration and healing, under any circumstances. After any damage, when the healing factor is activated, the absorbed cells return to their owner. But this time, David's cells merged with Huracan's cells. As a result, the monster was absorbed under the influence of the healing factor. And David acquired a new hidden skill. Gluttony absorbs all stats and level of target when eaten. Watched all of this from Angel's side. She asked if it was over, and she was happy. David said she was a terrible mother for being happy. He had killed her son. But the goddess replied that it was all figurative. She had not given birth to him. She waved her staff, and something huge, like a tree, grew out of the ground and extended a huge palm. Angela stepped onto it, said goodbye to Mr. Loser, and disappeared. The company's director, Abram Jones, ordered all employees to wrap things up and publish a note and organize a consolation event. And continue to follow the second character, as he said earlier. This character is Luna. David entered the city, and all the players greeted him joyfully, rejoicing and chanting, "Hero." The frontline villagers and travelers welcomed David. David breathed a sigh of relief. His secret was out. He didn't have to hide his power any longer. The live broadcast was still ongoing, and the number of viewers was 234,582 people. One player came to the center and was outraged that people could consider this player a hero. He had recently killed 3 and 8 million people. He is the most wanted criminal. And how can you admire him? And then Hawkeye showed up. He stood up for David, since he had the most to gain from the incident. The commander-in-chief began to admire Trusiki and called him Mr. Hero. He shook his hand. After all, he instantly became the most popular streamer. Hawkeye suggested that David not work alone, but join their guild Justice. And all the players started inviting him to their guilds. They begged him in front of each other. David ran away from his fans. Urus joked that he had become very popular, but the owner told him to shut up. Trusiki ran and crashed headfirst into the wall. Suddenly, a wall appeared in the middle of the village. It turned out to be a monument to David himself, full length, in his signature clothes, shorts, and raincoat. Then, the Halasan Guild players, led by Mr. Wang, came up from behind. They were all dressed like David. The head said that he was impressed by Trusiki and built a monument to him for a huge amount of money. David was shocked by the strange reaction. He asked why they were wearing only underwear and where their other items were. Mr. Wang replied that they sold everything to build the statue. It cost more than 20 billion. And then his fans caught up with him, and David again ran away, shouting, "Old men, leave me alone." Anna sat in her room and analyzed what had happened. She remembered how Trusiki dealt with the Gorps, how he killed the bear hare, and then he miraculously returned her brass knuckles. Why did he do all this? Why did he pretend to be weak and deceive her? Tears came to his eyes from the hurt and deception. Finally, all the fans calmed down. David was very tired and thought, do all famous people really live like this? And then love appeared in the game. Panties was very happy about her resurrection and return. He said that without her, he had an emptiness around him, and it was bad when she was not around. The players around were surprised who this girl was and why Trusiki was calling her boss. They were seeing her for the first time. David remembered Love's scarf, which he picked up after the battle with Huracan. He gave it to her, saying that he found it on the road. But Love was angry. She asked why he wasn't telling the truth, why he was lying. But David laughed and said that he couldn't lie. What was she talking about? And Love said that she recognized him, that it was he who gave her the rice cake on the doorstep. Trusiki was shocked. It can't be. His neighbor is Love? Yes, Love confirmed that she is Anna Sarang in real life. A little later, In Anna's apartment, her manager scolded her harshly. She was outraged by the behavior of her charge. How dare she expose herself in the game? She even customized her character to match her appearance. Customization is a way to change the screen of the game character. And according to the game policy, the player's appearance must match his real appearance. The manager was indignant that it was a miracle that she had not been recognized earlier, to which Love calmly replied that she had not planned to hide her passion. She played games to have fun, and why should she think about other people? But the manager was worried that her image would be destroyed. After all, she was playing to the crowd. But Anna didn't want to lie. Her manager made her do it. Love ran out of the apartment, slamming the door shut. The manager noted that this girl was very stubborn. Anna angrily took the VIA glasses and plunged into virtual reality. The retina of the eye was scanned. User authorization completed. Connecting to Chrono Life. Welcome, Love. Anna Sarang discovered her talent for singing as a child. Her first debut was at the age of 5. She was called a genius, a talent, a singer from heaven, a reincarnated woman, and so on. But her wonderful childhood was ruined by her own parents. Money was to blame. Her parents were supposed to take care of her and protect her, but instead, they pressured her. Anna had such a tight schedule that even an adult couldn't handle it. For a little girl, it was a tragedy. She was loaded with work. Endless interviews, music programs, talk shows, performances, commercial shoots, and so on. She tried her best for her parents. But one day, she reached her limit. At one crucial moment, during the most crucial performance, under enormous pressure from parents. She burst into tears right on stage. She had a breakdown. That left a deep scar in her heart. Love was sitting on the mound in the game, remembering David, how he gave her the belt back. And suddenly, she heard his voice. He said he finally found her. He guessed she would be here. He asked why she ran away then. Love told him to fuck off. David didn't understand what was wrong with her and why she was acting like that. Urus explained to him that she was angry. Angry at him for deceiving her and hiding his power. The dragon advised David to apologize and ask for forgiveness for his lies. Trusaki approached Love and asked her to forgive him. He didn't want to deceive her, but for some reason, it happened. Once he even wanted to tell her everything, but he never found the right moment. Anna asked if he really thought he could just ask for forgiveness and everything would be fine. And at that moment, a huge eagle flew out from behind the hill. He grabbed Love with his paw and carried her up. A blonde character was riding the eagle. He apologized to Love for grabbing her too hard. She shouldn't have passed out. A stunned David yelled at the man, ordering him to come down. But he responded, apologetically, that there were people who wanted to meet Miss Sarang. He'll borrow it for a while. David couldn't help himself and struck vertically. Urus tried to stop him, saying that he couldn't hit that man so thoughtlessly. The blonde character activated the skill 8 panoramas, 8 mirrors. The 5th panorama is reflection, and he struck at the panties. David received critical damage. The hidden skill healing factor was activated. Urus explained that this character was an unusual person. His name was Brown. He was a creature of the same kind as Urus. Brown's magic pendant, a precious crystal, had cracked. He thought David was the only one who could break it, besides that man. But on the other hand, an ordinary person like David does not deserve to have a piece of God. Anna woke up in the western forest, in a hidden tower. Brown was next to her. She didn't understand who he was and why she was dragged here. He was calming her down and saying that someone wanted to meet her. And then her parents came into her room, Mom and Dad. When she was 6 years old, after that incident, she decided to end her singing career. But her parents couldn't accept it. They wouldn't let her leave. Her parents beat her and punished her, but they made her come back to the stage. But his career was not going well, and his parents' income dried up. And then they decided to do something terrible. They sold their only daughter to some wealthy men, and a miracle happened. Anna was able to break free and escape, and immediately ran to the police. The police immediately recognized her, helped her, and she was saved from the hell that had tormented her for many years. The guardianship court deprived Anna Sarang's parents of their parental rights. They tried to appeal the decision, but they were unsuccessful. Thanks to the law, Anna was completely free of them. But this did not cure her broken psyche. The girl suffered a very severe and serious trauma. Her parents always said that they loved her, but in reality, they lied vilely. From that day on, Anna Sarang never left her room. She escaped from the real world to the virtual one. She sat at the computer and played online games all day long. Her vision deteriorated, and she was prescribed glasses. The trauma and memories she had experienced made her anxious about taking them off. And the day when she will come out into the world again will be told a little later. And now her vile parents were standing before her. They had no right. There was a restraining order. But her parents said that they were in the game and it was possible here. They saw an article about her playing Chrono Life and decided to meet. Anna wondered how they found her. But the parents replied that Brown had helped them. He became embarrassed and said that he would go out for a while and let them talk. And he disappeared. Mom sweetly said that her daughter had grown so much that they had only seen her on TV, and they were very happy to meet again. How could cruel guardianship separate parents and their child? Anna sternly asked for what purpose they came here. If there was none, then she would log out and leave. The parents said they came to ask for forgiveness. They had wanted to apologize for a long time. Mom and Dad understood that they had acted too cruelly then, and they are very sorry now. And if she forgives them, then they would like to return to those happy times and be together again as a family. Brown was standing outside near the hidden tower with his eagle when David came up. Brown was surprised that people didn't know about this place, but probably Eurus showed him the way. David suggested that he fight, so that only after taking revenge on him he would calm down. Brown replied, "Well, so be it," and called the eagle. A huge eagle flew into the sky and prepared to attack. David said that he would be the first, and then the eagle began to reproduce by division. There were 2 of them, then 4, and eventually a lot. It was the effect of the 4th panorama, the 4th mirror of Brown, a photocopy. Eurus explained to David that Brown had 8 mirrors, each with its own different effects. The reflection skill reflects all physical and magical attacks. And Brown is not a player, but a boss monster that must be defeated. And he walks around the game in the form of a player, pretending to be a human. Who came up with this? And at that moment, all the birds rushed to attack David. He activated the continuous cut and dealt several blows, and Brown's mirror finally broke. And David came up to him and called him a weakling. And he replied that he had not expected such agility. Trusiki threatened him and demanded to tell him why he kidnapped Love and what the God particle was. Brown didn't want to answer. David threatened him, and the monster decided that the mirror was not completely broken and he could use it one more time. He pointed it at Panties, who said, "Are those bird heads again?" But to his surprise, a copy of David himself appeared next to him. The target was copied completely, but the appearance was reflected. So another David appeared with the same club. Brown gave the reflection a command, and it struck the real David. Brown stood there watching the battle and thinking how amazing it was and how he hadn't thought of it before. Eurus approached him and asked why he was doing this. Why hang around David? Or was this the order of that man? And then, between Eurus and Brown, some kind of beige, indefinite mass fell to the ground from above. The dragon said it had started again, and David started the healing. From this mass emerged a head on a long neck, then a leg, and so on. But David looked like a monster. He saw through the fake panties and struck. They kept striking. They couldn't last much longer. Both Davids kept disappearing and reappearing from the gray and beige mass. Meanwhile, Brown told Urs that he had no interest in Mr. Hero. His target is the God particle. Urus clarified that he was talking about Boss Love. But Brown laughed and said that an ordinary person cannot be a part of God. It's just that Captain Love is the owner of a piece of God. Urus realized that Love's knuckle dusters were a piece of God. 10 million knuckle dusters. But Brown replied that it wasn't about the price. Items in Chrono Life were divided into classes. The first is the most infamous common class. The second is the rare class. And the third unique class, but there is one more, divine class. And the Knuckles of Silence belong to this class. Even higher than all is the excellent class, but Brown has never met one. But Urus saw excellent weapons, and a lot of them. Weapons and items of the God Particle class are especially prized by the gods. Meanwhile, the goddess of life sat on the hill with the Creator, eating sandwiches and watching what was happening. Angela was indignant that Brown had told Urus everything, but the Creator replied that it was okay, since he hadn't told anything secret. The Creator asked the goddess, because she also collects pieces of God, she confessed. And she said that she didn't expect Huracan to absorb the God Particle. It was delicious for him. She remained calm, but the result was different from what she expected. Meanwhile, the battle continued. The boys dealt blow after blow. Everything around shook and sparkled. Urus thought that the copy of Mr. Hero had no errors due to fatigue, since he was a bot. The dragon rushed to support and save David. He was recovering once again. But suddenly, Trusiki decided that fighting like this was damn fun. Before, enemies died from one hit, and it was not interesting. But now, he doesn't want to kill his copy. He wants to continue playing with it. Urus was scared and asked if David was in a terrible situation. But he replied that he had at least 2 ways to kill the copy right now. The goddess of life said that David was bluffing, and he couldn't defeat this boss by any means. And Brown became curious about what kind of thing Panties had come up with to destroy him. The first way is to destroy the planet. Boss Love will return to the village, and the fake Panties will disappear. But this method seemed very boring to David. He wanted to try something new. President Abram Jones, watching the game unfold, mentally begged David to choose the second option. The parents kept trying to persuade Anna to forgive them. She had already melted. She felt sorry for them. But then her mother came up and grabbed her daughter by the hand. Her mother wanted to know where her knuckle dusters of silence were. If she told her mother everything, she wouldn't be angry with her. The parents said that Brown would pay them well for the brass knuckles. They weren't asking for regular money, just some change, some armor. They gave birth to her and raised her, so she should at least do that for them. Anna replied that she didn't know where they were, since she had recently lost them in battle. Love cried and assured her parents that she hadn't lost them on purpose. She didn't know that they would need the brass knuckles. The father decided that she hid the knuckle dusters from them and hit his daughter. He called her an ungrateful bitch. Was she really so sorry to earn a little for her parents? After all, without them, she wouldn't exist. He rudely demanded money from her. And at that moment, a bright purple light appeared on the battlefield. Urus and Brown could not understand what was happening. David used the gluttony skill. He released the pipe from his mouth and began to devour his photocopy. Brown laughed and said that it was a bad idea, because the copy also had some skill, and the copy began to absorb the panties. And then David released a second tentacle and began to absorb Brown. He did not expect such a turn of events, and as soon as the body of the mirror's owner was about to die, the photocopy disappeared. The boss said he had no choice but to give up trying to get the silent knuckles. The creator, who was watching what was happening, asked Angela if Huracan had not absorbed the knuckles of silence. She replied that it was, but she hadn't told Brown about it. He didn't know. Brown asked David to let him go, and in return gave him his mirror, saying that if he killed him, the object would stop working. And Trusiki let him go alive, because it was more profitable for him. His target was Boss Love, not the Mirror Man. The father continued to mock Anna, threatened her, and ordered her to obey her parents in everything. The parents decided that they didn't need the knuckle dusters of silence. They could just get money from their daughter. The father and mother reasoned that this was just a game and the court's restrictions did not apply here. And she can't run away from them, and their family will now be together forever. Anna was tired of it all and prayed for someone to save her from this hell. And then David showed up. He told the parents that they were stupid and didn't understand that Anna could just stop playing. They asked who he was and how he dared to interrupt them and interfere in a family conversation. Dad recognized David as the guy from the video and said that nothing good should be expected from him. All he does is stick to their Anna. Trusiki couldn't hold back and hit him. He used a non-lethal blow because he respected his elders. The father started shouting that how dare he, because they are Anna Sarang's parents. David said that they are not parents if they beat their daughter and extort money from her. He couldn't stand it when the same tricks were used in the game as in reality. After all, what was the point of the game then? David asked Anna why she just sits and endures all the bullying. After all, she is in the game and her level here is higher. But Anna replied that they were really her parents, and she couldn't do anything bad to them. But David said, "Why play if you act like a loser in the game? And don't run away from problems." Love screamed that he knew nothing and had no idea how she lived with this all this time. But her mother hit her again, saying that they were victims here, and it didn't matter if it was a game or reality, but they were still her parents. The only ones. And then Love couldn't hold back and used her superpower to destroy the parents in the game. After that day, Anna became even more popular in real life. She was invited to all sorts of interviews. The journalist was interested in how she, so gentle, who wouldn't hurt even a fly, plays such a realistic game. But Love replied that beating monsters to death helps her relieve stress. Anna Sarang has finally overcome her trauma and is now living her life peacefully. The anxiety that had been bothering her also disappeared, and she no longer needed glasses. The journalist said that Anna is very different in real life from her character in the game. But Sarang assured that it is in the game that her true self is revealed. And in the end, what difference does it make how real it is? The game loses its meaning if it repeats reality. Fans supported Anna, and she became even more popular because she was honest with everyone. And David, watching this interview, also decided to support Love as a fan. Idol Anna Sarang overcame her childhood trauma. She really got out of the game world, and her real life also became happy. He put on his VR glasses and immersed himself in the game. David was in a hurry to meet her. Love started yelling at Trusiki again, that he was late, and that it had already become a habit for him, and why should she wait for him? He made excuses that he had watched a TV show with her interview, but she did not calm down and was angry. Yes, she continued playing Chrono Life. And not only did she not abandon the game, but on the contrary, she began to visit it more often. She ordered Panties to follow her. It irritated him that she was picky about everything. But Anna replied that she had not yet accepted his apology and was still angry with him. And then she melted and said that she forgave him in the end and asked him to teach her, because compared to David, she is a newbie and doesn't know anything yet. And she called Panties her sensei. And Chrono Life became the best game in the world. Because of the huge number of players, there were many guilds in it. The best of the best were in the top 5. They had an ideal reputation, the appropriate resources and qualities. But one guild took a different path. They collected data more valuable than the World Guild. All members of the guild belong to the Thief class. And this is the Robin Hood Guild. But even it was destroyed in one night. In this battle, only the guild leader survived, and he saw another man who survived, unharmed. He caught up with him and tried to stop him, but the man struck with his sword and pierced the guild leader with it. The man copied the guild's keyboard mask onto his face, and when the leader asked him why he was doing this, he answered because it was a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Love and David were riding in a cart towards their destination. The driver said that they were almost there and would soon arrive at the Stone Mountain dungeon. David and Love were sitting in the cart. He was chewing a chicken leg. Love looked at the map and said they would be there in 5 minutes. They were traveling to their destination on the rather popular Chrono Life transportation service, Meow Cart. The demon cat was transported from the demon world, trained and educated to pull a cart. The founder of this service was an ordinary monster tamer. It was a good business. They saw a giant mountain on the way. It was a stone dungeon. The highest point was 1,205 meters above sea level. On average, the monsters that lived there were level 30. But because of their large number, many newcomers raised their level here. The purpose of their trip was to train Love. She seriously asked David to train her and raise her level. And then David remembered that he had a gift for Love's boss. Suddenly, he handed her the excellent knuckles. Love was shocked. She was touched, and she burst into tears from surprise. No one had ever given her gifts, especially not like these. She was extremely grateful to him. She said thank you and that she would use them carefully. And she asked what David's character's name was, since she didn't know it until now. David started to answer, but then the cart stopped abruptly and almost overturned. The carrier asked if the passengers were okay, as the cat had suddenly gone berserk. Boss Love fell right on top of David, but they were okay. Her hand ended up on Trusik's intimate place, and they found themselves in an awkward situation. They became embarrassed. The carrier tried to calm the cat down and saw a strange man in a mask appear on the road. He was wounded. He came up to them and asked for help. David replied that why should he help him? But Love recognized the masked man. It was the leader of the Robin Hood Guild. He brazenly climbed into their carriage. David was outraged by his impudence. He asked the man who he was. Love asked Trusik if he really didn't recognize him. And then the player introduced himself. He said that he was the leader of the Robin Hood Guild, and her name was Beverly. David agreed to help her, and she replied that they would not regret it. So it concerns them, too. Headquarters in Chrono Life. Northern Support Team. The clock shows 5 minutes to 7. The boss sends his subordinates home. They wanted to work overtime, but the boss forbade them, saying that he would work for them. The head of the Northern Support Team for Chrono Life was named Jason. His colleagues joked that he probably hadn't made peace with his wife since he wasn't in a hurry to go home. When everyone left, Jason called them idiots and a lost generation that couldn't get the most out of life. I took out my VIA glasses and thought it was time to earn some money. The device was activated, then the retina was scanned and connected to Chrono Life. Manager rights detected. Welcome to Trophy Boy. Jason wielded a unique executioner's sword, the sword of the god of war, which exists in a single copy and has destructive power. Love sat and examined the brass knuckles that had been given to her. She asked David if they were of the highest quality. David replied that yes, and he had a lot of such weapons. The girl was very surprised. The thing is that superior class weapons can only be obtained in Chrono Life at the master level. Even pro gamers can't reach the highest level. This topic was quite popular among users, but no one had ever seen a superior weapon. It was a dream weapon. Love put brass knuckles on her hands and they contacted her. She became the owner of excellent brass knuckles. The girl admired their beauty, but in an instant they turned into ordinary worn-out brass knuckles. Due to the insufficient level, most of the weapon's capabilities are sealed. The higher the level, the stronger the weapon. She was upset, saying that with a low level, a superior weapon was ineffective and a unique item would be better. Love sat down on a rock and barely hit it with her knuckles. And the earth shook. Cracks appeared on the rocks. A column of dust rose. And David fell. Anna was shocked. If the sealed knuckle dusters had such power, she only lightly hit the stone, then what was their full power? Boris said he was disappointed, as he expected more from the superior weapon and dreamed of seeing it, and asked David if he was going to help Beverly. And David said maybe, because she said it had something to do with him. Beverly asked for help and told about one player. She did not know this person, his level and class. She only knew that he could copy objects, and the name of this character was Trophy Boy. This man was there where David killed 3 million players. Trusiki asked what this had to do with him, and what connected him with the trophy guy. He doesn't even know him by sight. Beverly said that this guy kills players to copy items, their weapons, and then sell them to make money. According to her information, David was also an arms dealer. Sometimes they are called dark players, or running chickens. She knew that Trusiki had sold many items from Eurus's lair. The items were losing value, but it was legal. And Trophy Boy makes money by deceitful and dishonest means. David wondered what it meant that items were depreciating in value, but Beverly said that it didn't matter now. The trophy man must be stopped. Otherwise, the economy and Chrono Life as a whole will collapse. But Trusiki said that he just needed to report it to the support service and let them deal with him. But Beverly said they would just block his account, and that's it. The support service will not do this, and you can only get an automatic letter from them. She also said that only David could handle him, since he was able to crush the World Guild Alliance single-handedly. Beverly jumped out of the wagon and ran away, shouting that she was counting on David. She asked to find and destroy the trophy guy before he ruined the game even more. David was annoyed by this, but he had no choice, since leaving the trophy man alone would make it difficult for him to sell. Love asked if the panties had a plan. They couldn't just wander around looking for him. To which David replied that since it was impossible to report it to support, it meant that it was a conspiracy of the higher-ups. And David got down to business. He called the president and invited him to the pub where they had first met. Having said that, if he didn't come, David would crash the game. The president got furious and asked what that meant, but David had already hung up and turned off the phone. The president tried to call him back, but all was in vain. And Trusicki decided that since the support wasn't working, he needed to meet with the president. And he wanted to order a double portion of Korean rice soup at the pub. After leaving the apartment, he ran into his neighbor in the hallway. This was Boss Love in real life. She also wanted to go to the pub with him. David didn't know what to answer. He was worried about her safety and that she wouldn't be noticed. Love demanded that in real life, David call her Anna Sarang. She sent a message to Miranda's manager that she would be taking panties out for a bit. The manager had just gotten out of the shower, received the message, and was surprised and interested by Anna's message. The president of Chrono Life burst through the doors of the pub. He yelled at the entire cafe where this bastard was. How dare he call him and make an appointment, giving him ultimatums. Love and David were sitting at the table and eating soup. They looked in surprise at the president, who had interrupted their meal. Abram Jones grabbed David by the neck and yelled at him for daring to give him orders and disrespect his status and age. The president asked who this lady was. Is she David's girlfriend? David replied that she was a popular idol, singer Anna Sarang. Anna slammed her fist on the table and urged the men to stop sorting things out and get down to business. The men calmed down, and the players began to tell the president about the current situation in the game. They ate soup and talked. The president was outraged by what was happening. He was surprised by the appearance of a player who copies objects. He claimed that such actions are impossible, and Beverly is most likely wrong. The probability of such events developing is less than 1/10,000%. It must be a genius hacker who broke into the security system. The president argued with David, who insisted that it was a bug. But such a bug simply does not exist. Anna clarified that if breaking in from the outside is not possible, what about breaking in from the inside? Abram Jones insisted that even with the rights of a manager, this was impossible and useless. He said he had business to attend to. He stood up and left, wishing them a pleasant meeting. Anna was surprised by his words about a date and asked if he wished her death or something. The president returned to the office and ordered his trusted person to prepare for him 5 people who could keep secrets. Abram Jones thought seriously about the situation in the game and decided to figure out what was happening. Love and Panties returned to the game. They sat and talked about what was happening. David said it irritates him, and it doesn't matter if it's a trophy guy or a prize man, he'll see him and crush his skull. Anna noted that this was a very masculine reaction. She was interested in the real goal that the trophy guy was pursuing. If his goal is money, then why attack Robin Hood's guild? David countered that the guild had many very valuable items. But Love replied that she didn't understand then why the trophy man was attacking ordinary users. Trusicki said he didn't understand and agreed he wasn't the smartest character. And then the earth shook, and they heard the noise of attack and battle. David ran towards the direction from which the noise was coming. The trophy man fought Brown. The boss was wounded. He cut off his hand. The villain said that the rumors about the boss's strength were greatly exaggerated. The one and only Brown is not that strong. The wounded man said that such behavior of the manager in Chrono Life will not be tolerated. If the management understands everything, then it will not be easy for him. Will he cope with it? But the trophy man grabbed Brown by the throat and said that unique bosses cannot be restored. And if he does not want death, then he must confess where his master is. Brown had no intention of telling him anything, and he swung his sword to kill him. But at that moment, the goddess of life, Luna, appeared and stopped the trophy man. He was very surprised by her appearance and was delighted, as he had been looking for her, but she herself came to him. Jason said he would finish off Brown first, and then deal with the goddess of life. But then he decided not to waste time on the boss, and asked Luna where Master Brown was. He began to threaten the goddess of life that he would cut off her limbs and hang them on the trees. He will cauterize her wounds with fire and will mock her, but so that she does not die. They can talk all night long today because he works overtime. Luna mentally compared Jason to David and said that they were very similar, but a trophy man was the complete opposite of Panties. The manager was furious at her words, but at that moment, a huge paw stepped on him and crushed him. The goddess of life said after him that Jason was disgusting, and she walked away. But the trophy man appeared again and asked the moon if this thing with huge paws was hers. It became clear to him why she was so self-confident, and he noticed that it would be troublesome for him. The goddess of life was surprised that he was still alive and said that now she would definitely kill him, because trash like him shouldn't exist in the game. The trophy man only smirked in response and said that she was lying with confidence, and he moved them to the GM zone, Game Master. This zone is used for game maintenance, testing, and is created by a privileged user. He was outraged by her statement that he was not worthy of living, and he shouted that it was enough to turn the game into reality. David and Love ran towards the source of the noise. He was sure it was all because of the trophy guy. Trusaki assured that something of his own was coming to them from the Chrono Life Workers, although the president assured that it was impossible. David realized that since Trophy Boy had destroyed Robin Hood's guild single-handedly, he had created an online account and was currently at work. They sped up their run and saw something strange. It was the trace of the trophy guy's teleport. Anna and David ran past the wounded Brown, who was sitting under a tree. He greeted them and was glad to see them. Trusaki stopped and asked Boss what was wrong with his hand and what he was doing here. Love was surprised by their conversation and asked if this was the guy who kidnapped her. Brown responded that he was attacked by a trophy guy, and he brought Luna to the GM area to fight at full strength. David realized that this guy was really the manager and asked who Luna was. The boss was surprised that Panties didn't know who he was, but she often talked about him and how David was hopelessly in love with her. She has long, straight hair and bangs. And David realized that it was a cockroach, the goddess of life. Love joked about Panties and his taste, but he replied that it was nonsense and only Luna was blabbering about it to everyone around. You have to be crazy to fall in love with someone who insulted his parents. He has zero interest in her. David was worried about Brown, saying he looked bad and was about to kick the bucket. Was he okay? He replied that he was in a lousy state and that Panties could cure him. David and Love discussed that if he died, they would receive many great items and divide them between them. But Brown said the mirror would disappear if he died. Trusaki said that he would cure the superboss no matter what, and sat down next to him. And David activated the hidden skill, the spirit of the priest. Revival. Used the healing skill, which restores health. Basic skill of the cleric. David said that he would restore his health and the scar would disappear, but in order to restore his hand, he needed to go to the hotel and log out. But Brown replied that this is what happens to players, and the mob can only restore its body parts after respawning. Then Trusaki suggested killing him painlessly with one blow, so that he would be reborn. But Brown stopped him, saying that he was a unique boss, and therefore he would not be resurrected after death. David wondered what kind of shitty game it was if bosses didn't respawn. But Brown responded that there aren't that many unique bosses, and their death doesn't affect the game at all. Urus was also a unique boss, and that is why he begged David to spare him and offered him his soul in order to live. Also, besides them, the unique boss is Luna. David was surprised that the cockroach was the boss. Meanwhile, Trophy Boy was trying to destroy the goddess of life. He was striking. But the moon replied that a pitiful man could not kill a deity, and it was all useless. Jason was surprised by her words, and replied that he had been working at Chrono Life for many years and knew all of her skills very well. He saw the fight between Luna and the stick insect. This recording was shown to all workers of the rank of team leader and above. The stick insect also believed that attacks don't work against the goddess of life. The goddess's special hidden skill is the creation of existence. Attacks on her work, she just recreates herself when she dies. And with these words, the trophy man destroyed the goddess, but she was immediately recreated. He noted that her skill was simply a cheat skill, There was a lot of debate about it during the design stage. And he asked, did she create Huracan with this skill? From the fragments of the left head that she found in the nest of Urus. And that's why she named Huracan her son. The goddess of life replied that he talked too much. What difference did it make if he couldn't kill her anyway? She struck and cut him in half, and he immediately connected and healed. The trophy man asked her why she thought he had moved her to this space, and he stripped her of her rank as the goddess of life, returning her to the image of a player before her reincarnation, saying that she turned out to be a cutie, and if he destroyed her, then Master Brown would definitely come out of the shadows. The trophy man struck and killed the unique boss goddess of life, Luna. A little later, Jason was sitting with a colleague and some girls at a bar. He said that there was nothing better than a drink after working overtime. A colleague told him that he had done a good job and that only the last step remained. But he replied that no, since Brown had refused to call his master until the very end. The man objected that Jason had killed Luna, the goddess of life, and that this should provoke the master to appear. The captured man admitted that he was unable to kill her because that son of a bitch prevented him. But it doesn't matter, because there are other ways to meet Master Brown. A colleague asked who Master Brown was and why it was so important to meet him. Jason was surprised that he had the courage to work with him and not know this. The colleague replied that he had simply followed him blindly since university and until now without asking any unnecessary questions. The trophy man explained that the master is one of the bosses related to the plot of the game Chrono Life. The best merchant, and his name is Rodriguez. The colleague was surprised that this merchant was a mob. But on the other hand, why not? If in Chrono Life there is freedom in everything. He remembered Huracan's skill, gluttony. Jason was surprised that he didn't know elementary things. There are 7 deadly sins from Catholicism, and they are often used in movies and games. Pride, greed, envy, anger, lust, gluttony, and sloth. These sins are the beginning of all others. And then Jason explained to his colleague the concept of the main plot of Chrono Life. Pride, Urus, gluttony, Huracan, laziness, Rodriguez, and lust is Luna. As expected, this bitch is also a boss. However, even though she is a boss, she is not an NPC. She is a normal user who became a super boss. The freedom in Chrono Life was much greater than the colleague imagined, just like the boss could become a salesman. At this time in the game, Panties and Love were discussing the current situation with Brown. David wondered if Luna was really something between an NPC and a regular user, but Brown replied that he didn't know for sure. But a trophy man should know this since he is, after all, the manager. But Anna said that she still doesn't understand why a trophy guy needs to meet laziness. If his goal is to make money by selling items, he can simply load them into the warehouse. And why attack Robin Hood's guild? His actions were inconsistent. Brown suggested that it might be because of the God particle. The trophy man is looking for the perfect weapon. David said that he had heard all this somewhere before. Urus recalled that the particle of God was the name given to objects of the superior class. Beverly showed up. She apologized for disappearing suddenly. She had her own investigation. The head of the Robin Hood Guild said that they all needed to take a walk because she had found the lair of the trophy man. They came to a wooden house. It looked quite ordinary. Beverly assured them that this was Jason's lair, but at the moment he was not in the house and nothing indicated his presence. Beverly said that no one can enter the house unless they are the owner. David quickly used a wooden club and broke through the wall of the house. They entered the house and saw inside a mountain of gold, excellent objects and weapons. These were not copies, but originals, and they were all of divine class. According to the roughest estimates, the wealth was worth $5 billion. Beverly saw many items from her guild. She assumed that the trophy guy left them there because of the limited space in the inventory. James was obviously after the divine objects. But why? He could have just gone to Urus's lair, like David did, but he would have earned crumbs, and the company would have noticed. And thus he received mountains of divine objects. Their price is high, and they are constantly being sought out and bought by the merchant Len. If Rodriguez is not a regular user, then there is no information leak, and the trophy man sold everything separately, and there was practically no risk of being caught. They decided to screenshot it all and send it to the support service. It was important evidence, and the case moved forward. Beverly took off her mask and said they could close the case. They did a good job. But David found this boring, and he decided to teach the trophy guy a lesson anyway. Trusiki put on a Robin Hood mask and went with Love to the village. The trophy guy, as expected, appeared in the middle of the village. He asked Trusik why he needed the mask. Was it to hide his identity? But David took it off, saying he borrowed it from Beverly. She watched everything that was happening from the roof of the house. Her guild members were with her. They didn't understand what was going on and why David had lured the trophy man here. A little earlier in the trophy man's lair, Trusiki decided to take all the money and items. He had a plan. When Jason came to the shelter, he saw a broken wall in the house. There was no money or weapons. The room was empty, and there was a note on the floor. In the note, David invited the trophy boy to collect the stolen treasure. To do this, he had to appear in the center of the village at 7 o'clock in the evening. Real time. The trophy man was angry at the stick insect. At that damn bastard. And of course, he showed up at the appointed time. He showed up and yelled at David for stealing his wealth. Panties took the divine sword from Love, and he said that if Jason came even one step closer, he would sell this sword to the NPC. The trophy man was outraged that the sword was worth 200 million, but if he sold it to an NPC, he would not receive even 300 zolotus. Jason asked David what he was after, but he said he just wanted to get the trophy man. It gave him pleasure to watch him shake with anger. Jason used his abilities and instantly found himself behind David. A bright flash blinded everyone around. They did not understand what it was. Love noticed that Panties had disappeared, and in his place there was only a cloud of dust. Jason moved David to the GM area. He yelled at him, how dare he interfere with the manager's affairs. He threatened to cut up Trusik's body into pieces and make kimchi out of it. He struck and wounded David, but he activated his healing factor and recovered. They fought and cursed, insulting each other. David shouted that he did not respect the users. The fight was not equal, and David was losing. The trophy man struck one blow after another. Jason complained that no matter how hard the developer tries, he only gets humiliation and criticism from the users. And he too was the same naive, unspoiled developer about 7 years ago. But now, it's time for revenge. David shut him up and dealt the finishing blow, but he triggered his healing factor. Trusiki was surprised that he used the healing skill. Where did he get it from? But everything was possible with the manager account. And Trophy Boy activated a hidden power skill. David was shocked. It's like a healing factor, only not from vitality, but from strength. Hidden skill Titan Spirit. The user gained the power of Titan. It can only be acquired by master level. Jason began to transform, and David noticed that the special effects were very serious. Even with the healing factor, they are not so dramatic. Titan Spirit is activated. Damage and attack range are increased by 1,000% for the duration of the skill. The trophy man swung and struck David. Panties activated the healing factor and was resurrected. He told Jason that his skill was a cheat and offered to give it to him. The trophy man was confused. David activated his gluttony skill and latched his tentacle onto Jason. He could steal all the statuses and skills from the trophy guy with this skill. But the manager activated the hidden skill Light Speed. He could move at the speed of light. He instantly dodged the blow and delivered his own blow to David's stomach. Jason said it was all about strategy and status. And his status was at the highest level. And no matter how good David is, he can't beat the trophy man. He called Panties an oversaturated idiot who had reached the maximum level. He relied on items, not skills. David responded that it was disgusting to hear such things from a manager who was simply abusing his rights. Jason said that there was no need to be jealous, and if he wanted, he could also become a manager. The battle was fierce, and they struck each other. David turned on the recoil control feature in the game settings, and when Jason hit David, he got a kickback. Trusiki said it was time to end this. The trophy man laughed. Did he really know how to defeat him? David replied that there was one way. They had hung themselves well, and it was time to say goodbye. At this time, Love was sitting on a bench in the village and worried about David. She asked Beverly what a strong man like Panties could do to a player with managerial rights. Beverly replied that he didn't tell her anything, but it was strange that his girlfriend didn't know either. Anna smiled and remembered what David had said about provoking Jason to drag him into the GM area. But Beverly was troubled by the thought that Mr. Panties had left a note and moved the meeting time up a day. He probably thought of some way to beat the trophy guy. And at that moment, David used the summoning skill, the basic summoner skill. The trophy guy laughed creepily and was surprised by the choice of skill. Why summoning, and not some cooler skill? He asked if David thought he was a god. With low charisma and intelligence, this skill is useless. With his skills and statuses, some shitty mob will appear. But the call was successful, and the company's president, Abram Jones, appeared in the GM zone. The trophy boy was shocked by what was happening, but Jason was very amused. Last night, when Jason and his co-worker and the girls left the bar, the manager decided to go back to work. He ordered his colleague to go home and rest, as there was a lot of work ahead. But on the way, the colleague and his girlfriend were intercepted by the president and security personnel. They interrogated him, and he revealed Jason's plans to get the money and escape abroad. And he was simply following his orders. The colleague begged for mercy. Everything became obvious and clear to the president. He thanked David for the work he had done and for helping to catch the criminal. The company planned to hold a legal conference and sue the trophy man for everything they could. David asked the president what his plans were for tomorrow and offered to teach Trophy Boy a lesson. And when the president showed up to the call in the GM zone, Jason submitted a request to exit. But it was impossible to exit the game during the battle. And then the trophy guy decided to leave the GM zone, trying to escape. But the president, noticing this, activated the presidential zone. Jason, out of desperation, realized that he would be fired from the company anyway, and rushed at the president with a weapon, threatening to kill him. But he didn't reach the goal, because Abram Jones had the level of the president. In front of him, he slowed down, and the president struck just one blow, saying, "You're fired." He took out the trophy guy with just one blow, once and for all. David thought the president was a very scary old man, because he had bypassed even the super-level healing factor. But in any case, on that note, the matter was concluded. All the divine items were returned to their owners. It turned out that other guilds were among the victims. The trophy boy was fired and relieved of his duties the same day. Even in reality, the old man beat him like a dog and kicked him out of the company. Jason sued for damages for the beating, but ended up only getting himself into trouble. The countercharge sent the president into round 2, Irritate, and his legal team fought off all charges. Jason won't have enough time in his life to pay for the damage done to the company, and the game industry is closed to him forever. After that day, the trading life of Trusikov returned to normal. Everything went as usual. But David was haunted by the conversation with Brown about the goddess of life. He couldn't understand. Was this cockroach an NPC or a human? And so David was lying on the couch at home, took off his VIA glasses, and walked out of Chrono Life. And he was shocked. Next to him on his sofa sat a girl with black hair and bangs. He recognized her as Angela, the goddess of life. She said to him, "Hello, Mr. Loser. Long time no see." David, having recovered from the shock, offered her a snack. They sat and ate ramen. Trusiki was now at least sure that the goddess of life was a real person, and not an NPC. He looked at her and tried to understand what was what. Angela asked why he was looking at her like that. Was she really that beautiful? But he told her to just eat her soup in silence. Ramen. David remembered how at the beginning of the game she insulted him, lured him into the forest to kill him. She then called his parents poor people. He was very angry with her. He asked who she was anyway, and how she knew where he lived, and the password to the house. Angela said that since he made and fed her ramen, he had the right to ask her questions. She understood that there were many of them and was ready to answer all of them. David started with something simple. He asked if her hair color was real. Since when they first met, it was light pink. Angela answered affirmatively. This is her natural hair color. David asked the next question. Is she a unique boss? Did the trophy guy kill her and her character get deleted? She replied that she had died, but her character had not left. Her human form was essentially skillful. When the manager attacks in the GM zone, the divine authority disappears. and she didn't know about it either. But otherwise, she would have died as a unique boss, and her character would have been deleted. David asked if she was planning to start another massacre, as she had to kill 1,000 players. But Angela said that it is not that simple, and that this is only one of the conditions. Before that, more complex conditions must be met, and she can freely switch between human and divine forms. David clarified that she did not answer his initial questions about who she was and why she appeared in the game wherever he went. And now, this is too much. She appeared next to him in reality. If she doesn't answer, he will report it to the police. Angela replied that there were too many troublemakers in this world, and she wanted to propose to him. She told him that Mr. Loser was to be hers. There was silence. David was in shock. And then the doorbell rang. David wondered who it was that had come at such a time and so opportunely. It was Anna Sarang. She was standing in front of the door. She needed to discuss something with him. She asked to open the door. Trusiki was at a loss. Anna rushed inside and was angry that he wouldn't let her in. She looked around the apartment and said it was cleaner than she thought. It looked like her home. I saw ramen on the table and noticed that David likes to eat late and also spicy food. Anna came to find out about the game and what time Trusiki is going to enter the game tomorrow. David replied that he would come in the morning when he woke up, since he had the day off and no other plans. Angela stood behind the wall of the room and listened to their conversation. Anna said that she was also free, and tomorrow he would teach her and train her. She wished him good night, said goodbye, threatening to kill him if he overslept, and she ordered him to give her his phone number so that she wouldn't have to look for it every time. She took his phone and wrote down her number under the name Anna Sarang, and told him to call her so that she would save his number. And if he doesn't answer the message, she will finish him off. David agreed with everything, but was shocked by her behavior. Anna went out into the entrance and exhaled. She had his number, and she doubted whether she had behaved correctly and whether her voice was shaking. David returned to the table with Angela to continue the conversation, but he had no energy or strength. He hadn't expected such a turn of events in the middle of the night. Angela asked why he had told her to hide, since they hadn't done anything strange. Trusiki replied that her very presence was strange and told her to get lost. He no longer needed her answer. She replied that she would leave only after he responded to her proposal. David was outraged that this was an offer to become her. He doesn't even know who she is. But Angela clarified that she wanted him to become hers in the game, to team up with her. Meanwhile, Brown came to the great merchant Rodriguez, Lenny, the unique boss of the 7 deadly sins. The master asked what was wrong with Brown's hand, but he replied that he was not capable enough to preserve the body the master had given him. And Rodriguez instantly restored the lost arm of Brown, the king of mirrors. Len asked who wounded him. Was it that hero? But Brown replied that no, on the contrary, the hero saved his life. If the master meets him, he will like him. So far, he is the closest thing to a place for one of the 7 deadly sins. Meanwhile, the action took place in the game's paradise location, the Silver Coast, farming spot for level 30 and above. Slimes were everywhere on the beach. It's a liquid monster that lives here. It is very popular among beginners. It melts the body of the one who touches it. But there was also a much stronger monster on the Silver Coast that a newbie couldn't handle. Giant Octopus Kraken, summoned boss, level 85. He has very strong skin that cannot be pierced by a blade. He used his limbs to move both on water and on land. An imbalanced character with a ferocious temperament, he inflicted irreparable injuries on newcomers. David brought Love to fight him to level up. He dealt the monster a non-fatal blow, stunning it, and ordered Love to act and finish it off. She used her ability, Dragon Dive Kick, and struck straight at the octopus's eye. That was the final blow. The monster was killed. David asked about her experience and level, but Anna replied that, strangely enough, it had not increased by a single unit. Urus commented that it was possible that this was due to the difference in their levels, and no matter how much David trained her, she would not gain experience. Trusiki noticed that Love's blow this time was much stronger and more effective than before. She said it was probably because of the weapon. Excellent Knuckles. Although their abilities were mostly sealed, the higher the level, the stronger the weapon became. And David said that since everything was going so well with the brass knuckles, she could farm on her own without him. Lav was shocked by these words. What does it mean without him? She wanted to farm only with him. And stupid Trusiki didn't understand this. The goddess of life was watching all this and recalling yesterday's conversation. David refused her offer because he was still angry with her and was in a team with Love's boss. He said that Anna would beat him to death if he brought Angela to the team. Meanwhile, Love grabbed David by the cloak and dragged him to the next zone to farm further. Angela watched this and was jealous. She wanted to destroy her rival. But for now, she had to let the situation go. David will do it with his own hands when he becomes hers, for the sake of the chrono life ending. Lav dragged David, and Eurus was indignantly following her, saying that nothing would work. He wouldn't be able to help her in any way. Trusiki asked, "What should we do then? Is there really no other way to help her?" Anna noticed that David often talked to himself. She asked if there was anyone else with him. David asked if she didn't see the dragon that was always next to him, but she said no. She didn't see anyone. Urus reminded that no one except his owner could see him. But there is one way. If David shares his mana with Urus, he will be able to gain a material form. The owner objected to him that his intellect and wisdom statuses were very low. His mana was practically 0. The dragon said that this might be enough, and David agreed to do it right now. He began the ritual of materializing Urus's soul. Everything around was filled with a bright purple color. Then the light gathered in one place. A moment, and the soul of Urus was materialized. Anna saw him and was amazed. He seemed so cute to her, and she wanted to hug him. Urus began to be indignant that some impudent little man dared to squeeze him. But David gave the go-ahead, and Anna rushed to hug and cuddle the dragon. Brown appeared next to them. He flew in haste on his giant eagle. He was looking for a hero. David wondered how he found it. Brown replied that it was one of his mirror's skills. The 7th panorama, exploration. It shows with a check mark the path to the enemy he has already met. Brown said it was not the time for talking and that the man was just heading to that place. David was pleased to see Brown's arm restored and asked how he had reattached it. Brown replied that it was the master who restored it. And David congratulated him and was happy for him. But he insisted. And he said that they had a serious problem. And then the earth began to shake. An earthquake began. And Brown realized that the man was already there. It was the master of the great throne, Len Rodriguez. David and Love were amazed by what they saw. They were soldiers with angelic armor. Trusiki thought he would look like a monster like Brown, since he was called a great merchant. Why was the master so huge? Brown flew up to the master on an eagle and said that he had not yet managed to explain everything in detail to the heroes. But Rodriguez replied that he would come down himself and tell them everything. And the huge throne landed on the ground. He was glad to greet the hero of our time, and David finally saw Master Len. Meanwhile, the goddess of life was walking through the territory of some castle. She stopped and spoke. "Finally, I found you, the strongest man at the moment of life. The first hero, Mr. Yopi. The hero Yopi died 100 years ago. An outdated and familiar legendary hero. She knew it would happen. She waved her staff and brought Yopi to life. Laziness is one of the 7 deadly sins. Its close associates are the strongest of the angelic tribe. He is also called the Great Merchant of Chrono Life. He occupies a huge throne made of pure gold. A great and magnificent presence. David and Love were shocked by what they saw. Laziness turned out to be a boy, still a child. The body that appeared was Rodriguez, Master Laziness. David felt like a child was making fun of him. Rodriguez said that the level of people these days has dropped a lot, and a guy like David has already become a hero. And Master Len struck David in the jaw. Love was shocked and confused. Brown tried to stop the master. He asked why he was attacking the hero. After all, he was helping them. Rodriguez reminded Brown that they exist to oppose humans. But Brown getting close to a human was stupid. Mob and user can't be friends. And the problem is that David killed the Urus, pride, one of the 7 deadly sins, thus speeding up the entire course of events. Urus was officially the strongest boss in Chrono Life. He had a role in the raid at the end of the story. Rodriguez and David discussed the situation while throwing punches at each other. Panties killed Urus and ruined everything. Also, gluttony. Huracan shouldn't have been consumed so easily. In another 5 years, or perhaps only in 10, they were to be defeated. Love, trying to justify David, said that Huracan attacked first, and Panties was only protecting her. But Rodriguez ordered her to shut her mouth and not to interrupt him. He did not give her the right to speak, and from the pressure, Love fell to the ground. Surprised by what was happening, she had never felt such pressure. And Len explained that Huracan appeared because of Urus's death. David is the real reason for what is happening. And the problem, growing like a tumor, will soon finish everyone off. The strongest man in Chrono Life, the first hero Yopi, will soon be resurrected. This is all happening much earlier than planned. And the goddess of life has come to share her power. But David countered that if he was a hero, that meant he was on the side of the people. What's the problem? Rodriguez said that David was much more stupid than he thought. Yopi would not rise as a man, but as one of the deadly sins, and his main goal will be the destruction of all living things. People who have filthily betrayed him. He loved and trusted people more than anyone else, and he hated them just as much. His life was like a children's fairy tale, and Angela wanted him to become one of the deadly sins. And the first hero, Yopi, was resurrected, and he now became the sin of wrath. Now a little history. The continent that existed since ancient times, Chrono. It was a place where there was no hostility or war. A blessed world, full of peace. But one day, the devils appeared, and turned the continent into hell in just one moment. At that moment, a ray of light broke through the thickness of despair and sorrow. "Stop!" said David. "Stop telling me I hate history." Rodriguez wanted to eventually tell him that the dark hero would be resurrected. In front of David stood a little guy with angel wings. This was Rodriguez, Supermaster, Boss Sloth. Trusiki told the kid that he had defeated Urus, whom he looked up to, with one blow. So he should take that into account. And it doesn't matter if it's the first hero, the strongest man, or whoever, so what? Why should they be afraid of him? Rodriguez said David was dumber than he thought. Panties didn't know human fear, even though he was human. The hero himself will raid him. A raid is when one or more players attack a boss. Rodriguez turned and started to walk away. David asked where he was going and if he wasn't going to fight him. Len replied that he was just interested in looking at the hero. But it seems that this is all David can do. Rodriguez once fought alongside Yopi, who was the only person the master recognized, and David will never defeat him. To which Trusiki replied that he was looking forward to it. David didn't want to let Boss leave and swung his club after him, but Brown stopped him. He said there was no point in fighting if the conversation ended on a positive note. But David's hands were itching and his chin still hurt from the boy's blow. Although the wound had already healed, Brown calmed David down and tried to explain to him. He said that all his items worth 15 billion were bought by Mr. Rodriguez. Meanwhile, Yopi has risen again along with his army. And his bone dragon has risen again too. The goddess of life approached him and said that he was supposed to be resurrected much later. But the story is moving much faster than it should, and she has already shared with him the necessary energy. Yopi thanked her and said that he would repay her at the first opportunity. Angela asked where he was going. He replied that he had once saved this world, and now he would destroy it. And Yopi immediately teleported. The work of the goddess of life was done. She declared it to the Creator, but she doubted whether she had done the right thing. But the Creator asked why she was unsure. After all, in the story with Huracan, she did what she wanted. But she replied that everything was different now. Because, in the main story, this guy is just a grain of sand. The Creator said not to worry and just enjoy. Enjoy watching this world being cleansed. At this time, David was amazed why this kid bought all his items for 15 billion zlotys. Rodriguez replied that he did, and he sold them a month later for 51.7 billion, and received 37 billion in net income. David walked up and bowed before Rodriguez, asking the great merchant to teach him the business. Len was amazed, saying that Trusik didn't have an ounce of pride. And then Rodriguez felt that he was here. The end of the world was approaching, and so suddenly, the war began. The Yopi army, consisting of skeletons, attacked peaceful towns and villages. They destroyed all living things in their path. It was a sudden attack that no one was prepared for. The monsters captured the entire village very easily, as in the case of Huracan. All players have received a notification about the main quest of Chrono Life. Protect the world from the hero Yopi, the sin of wrath. Monsters were everywhere and killing players. People were perplexed. Shouldn't the hero fight on their side? Why would the hero destroy everything in Chrono Life? And then the strongest mage of the Abracadabra Kingdom appeared. She was the head of the Holy Land Guild. The mage launched a fire tornado and stopped the monsters for a short time. She gave the order of the kingdom. From now on, they, Holy Land, will protect this place. The people were delighted because all the magicians of the kingdom had gathered. Their blow was fast and accurate. The kingdom learned from its previous clash with Huracan and responded to the attack in a timely manner. There was one reason for their loss. They were not yet ready for such a battle. Chrono Life's main quest was originally supposed to start a year later. They had no chance of winning with their current statuses and items. Meanwhile, Yopi teleported to the Mountain of Heroes. There were 3 tombstones there. Here his 3 best friends died. A tear rolled down his face, and the hero commanded the dead to rise. Yopi said that he would no longer allow them to walk the path of honor they had walked so far. And the mage, the priest, and the bard rose from the dead. They joined Yopi, all of them level 999. He urged them to go forward and finish this endless story. The level of the main quest increased. The difficulty level is disaster. David kept picking his nose and saying, "So what?" The guy would fall from the blow of his stick. And the bone dragon will fly right here? He hasn't used Intercontinental Strike for a long time. Rodriguez claimed that many innocent users would suffer, and there was still a whole army of the dead. An attack without the use of holy powers is doomed to failure, and the great destruction of the planet is also useless. Even if the servers crash, after restoration, the Yopi army will not disappear. No matter how strong David is, one man is no match for another. Well, Trusiki decided to end this war alone. He prepared and turned off the recoil control. David hit the ground with his club and disappeared. Love asked the bosses where he had gone. Brown replied that the recoil of the blow sent David flying into the sky. It was a crazy move. Mr. Laziness thought he liked the hero's indifference. Meanwhile, the monument to the Panties still towered over the frontline village. This place became a city of death in an instant with the snap of a finger. In the game room, players began to emerge from their capsules and swear at the game Chrono Life. It was impossible to play. The village should be a safe place, but then monsters appeared and started to destroy everyone. The administrator was shocked that everyone was swearing at Chrono Life again. He had already given up. The worker tried to calm the players, the visitors of the hall. He convinced them that the server had glitched and they just needed to re-enter the game. No one listened to him, and the players no longer wanted to play Chrono Life. They discussed what was happening. Some liked it, some didn't. And then everyone received an official notification from Chrono Life. And if the notification is true, it means the game will soon cease to exist. At the Chrono Life office, an employee was arguing with the director that it was impossible. The main quest couldn't be completed with the player's current level and equipment. Users from all over the world will be finished off by the hero Yopi. We must intervene immediately. The president countered that his company's policy is non-interference in gaming. The trophy guy was an exception, but the employee was indignant about why they posted the notification. The notification stated that, although it was not part of their plans, the main quest of the game Chrono Life had begun. It happened suddenly, and from that moment on, the fate of Chrono Life will be determined by the outcome of the quest. After the quest fails, the world of Chrono Life will be taken over by Yopi. He will exterminate all life, and dark times will come. The future of Chrono Life is in the hands of its users, and everything depends only on them. At that moment, in the middle of the village and the army of the dead, David fell from the sky. He thought, his poor ass, Moving around is so great and fast, but landing is not so great. And he began to destroy the army of the dead. The skeletons struck, but he did not feel them. David landed a few blows and knocked out the attackers. Ordinary mobs, he thought. The hero realized that since he had invested all his points into stamina, he couldn't even avoid the slow attacks of the dead. He opened the skill window and selected the gluttony skill. It was time to have fun. He began to absorb all the targets around him. Due to the large number of targets absorbed, his level and statuses were doubled. His powers increased, and he could now wear armor. He decided that he should not be picky, but should eat well. The army's fighters are the undead, the deceased, neither alive nor dead. They have nothing left but instincts. The strongest army in the world, not afraid of death. But instincts made them flee from the battlefield. David devoured everyone he could grab. They fled because of the overwhelming fear. The village was attacked by about 2,000 skeletons. Even a whole country couldn't stand before this. In an instant, this army turned to dust. Even the strongest undead bone dragon, who led the dragon tribe after Eurys's disappearance, was absorbed. All of David's stats increased to master level. Eurys admired his master and said that a trophy man would not have a chance now. And David was upset that Eurys was comparing him to this piece of trash. And then Trusiki saw the remaining survivor and wanted to absorb him. But he saw that it was a cockroach. She had been coming around a lot lately. And suddenly, she canceled the god mode and turned into an ordinary angel. David asked her why she did it. She said she didn't want them to be watched. Angela threw herself on his neck with hugs and kissed him on the lips. David pushed her away and asked what it was. She replied that it was her first kiss, and it happened by accident. She slipped. David was indignant at the nonsense she was talking. It was no accident, and Angela even hugged him around the neck. But the girl countered that, with his increased speed, he could have dodged it if he wanted to. Angela said that it was her first kiss too, but David shied away from her and asked why she was doing it. And then the girl said that she came here to give him something. And she handed David a god-class gemstone, telling him that he should keep secret where he got the stone from. That's why she canceled her god mode. Panties didn't understand everything completely, but decided to accept the gift. Angela clarified that it was a very important item, and David should take care of it. He would need it later. And then Love came running, cursing at the panties, that how could he leave alone? She saw Angela next to David and understood everything. Trusiki apologized that he did everything in a hurry, so he did not think. Love tugged at David's coat and asked him who this aunt was, and for him to introduce them. Trusiki was surprised. Didn't Anna remember her? Because they had met before. Angela activated God mode, and Love immediately recognized the goddess of life. Angela checked with David, because he will fight the hero Yopi. It will not be easy, since he has reached the maximum level. Because of the energy she gave him, and he's probably already arrived at the place. Meanwhile, in the heart of the demonic world, the hero Yopi appeared in the castle of the Demon King. He was met by the assistant of the great Demon King, Death, and was surprised that he was still alive. Hadn't his king destroyed him? Yopi replied that his body was immortal. The assistant asked why he had come. The hero said he came to pick up his sword. The hero's two-handed sword. God class. The strongest sword that only a hero can wield. Death countered that the Demon King's energy was sealed within that sword, and he doubted Yopi would be okay if he took it. The hero replied that he knew. That's why he came. He grabbed the sword, and it lit up with flame. The condition was met, and the job change was completed. A new Demon King was born. Yopi was granted the privileges of the Demon King profession. His strength increased tenfold. Hidden skill, Demon King authority. The Demon King rules the demon race, and he gave the first order to his assistant, to summon an army of demons and destroy the human world. Death opened the gates and summoned his army of demons. The two dimensions of the human world and the demon world are not connected to each other. Not everyone has access to interdimensional teleportation. Only the assistant Death can open the interdimensional gates with his mouth. And thus began the demonic invasion. Rodriguez was struck by the intensity of Yopi's anger at humanity. David wondered what the point. He was going to destroy everyone anyway. But his blow was useless. Angela explained that a powerful army of demons had received immortal bodies thanks to the energy of Yopi. Even gluttony wouldn't be enough for this strongest tribe to deal with such a number of monsters. She asked what Mr. Loser was going to do. How to defeat the first hero, David thought, and activated the priest's skill. The priest's soul was activated. He decided that the blessing was perfect for the undead. The selected weapon will be temporarily blessed. The damage will depend on the user's intelligence level. David swung his club and delivered a sacred upward strike. He destroyed the demons and commented that they were just pathetic mobs that could not withstand a holy blow. Mr. Yopi's panties were peeping out. He was already getting bored. But at that moment, all the demons were resurrected. David was shocked, and Angela said that it was because of Yopi's skill. As long as he has enough mana, the demonic army will not die. David said that in that case he would have to fight until all this mana was gone, and he decided to loop the ascending holy strike. But Angela stopped him, saying that it was a waste of time. They will be resurrected anyway. Things will go much faster if you destroy the hero Yopi himself. David asked her why she sounded so desperate, and she said that Yopi was in the demon world, and he couldn't get there. Love called out to Panties, showing him a hole in the sky. If you go through it, you can get to the demon world. Angela said that the hole was only one way, and if he tried to go through it from that side, he would be torn to pieces. And she told Love to stop talking nonsense and not to butt in where she wasn't wanted, calling her an overrated bitch. Anna replied that who was she to insult her? No player had ever entered the demon world. Angela countered that she had that ability. As a goddess, she could teleport to any world. That's why she came here. And she offered to take David to the hero Yopi. And then David understood why she was looking for him and why she gave him the precious stone. But all this had to remain between them, in secret. And he agreed to her help and took her hand so that she could lead him. Love screamed, "How can Panties trust this woman?" But he replied that he had no other choice, and he had no other way to get to Yopi. Love asked to go with them, but Angela replied that she could only transfer one person. She said that they would have fun on the date and then come back to her right away. The teleportation began, and they disappeared, leaving Love alone. And she realized that this woman was her rival. The goddess of life teleported David to the Demon King's castle. On the throne sat that same hero Yopi. But he replied that the hero was no more. Only anger remained. And as one of the 7 sins, he will put an end to these nasty and wretched people. And at that moment, David delivered the sacred upward blow with his club and apologized for interrupting the dialogue. Yopi was defeated. David asked Angela that it was all over. Then it was time to go back. But she replied that everything was just beginning. After all, the Demon King was immortal. Then the hero Yopi appeared and noticed that even the previous Demon Kings did not have such powerful attacks. David was amazed at how he was able to avoid his blow, since he was a master with maximum stats. But Yopi replied that evasion attacks were not affected by level or stats, and struck David with a sickle-shaped sword. He said that the bend of the wrist, the look and breathing of the opponent, all this allows you to dodge attacks. And suddenly, David appeared behind Yopi and replied that he would remember all this for the future. Hero Yopi was amazed that he appeared behind him so quickly. But by the time he turned around, David had already disappeared. He immediately appeared on the floor near Yopi's feet. He struck the Panties, but he was no longer there. David was moving at top speed and was having a lot of fun. At this time, in the human world, Love was attacked by demons. She tried to escape from them and screamed how Panties could leave her here alone. She fell while running and was overcome with anger towards this woman who had taken her boyfriend away. And she attacked the demons with hatred. The demon's level was 100, and Love's was about 25. She couldn't hurt him, but she had divine knuckles. They covered the difference in levels and also had the ability to change weapons automatically. The knuckle dusters themselves activated the priest's attribute, and Love defeated the demon. She gained experience, and her level increased. The level of the creatures in the demonic army is huge. Both from them and from the main quest, more experience was given than even from the bosses. Love decided to relieve stress in this way and finally increase her level, and began to destroy demons. But there were so many of them. Too many. And she thought, where are the panties? When he comes back, she will kill him. Meanwhile, Yopi agreed that David was stronger and faster than him. Trusiki warned that his stats were the highest, and if he understood everything, then he must obey and die, and they will not waste time. The Demon King replied that before, the battles had always been without a chance of victory, but they always won. Yopi was joined by his friends, and they were all going to attack David together. Urus said that heroes can't behave like that. They fight one-on-one. And Angela told David to be careful. The Yopi's success rate in raids is 100%. They've never lost. And the Goddess of Life again suggested David to join a party, to be stronger. Love was still trying to fight the demons, and then Beverly appeared out of nowhere. Love was very happy to see her. They began to fight together, and Beverly noticed that there were too many demons. It looks like a great war between humans and demons has begun in a typical game. She called upon all members of the Robin Hood Guild, ordering them to turn off their invisibility, go on combat alert, and protect the frontline village. Sprinkle your weapon with holy water and go into battle. The battle with the demonic spawn begins. Love saw the famous Robin Hood formation with her own eyes for the first time, and Beverly replied that it was only the second time she had used it. The first time was against her boyfriend, and then the Justice Guild appeared, led by Hawkeye. They decided to join the battle. Beverly said that wasn't all, and the guilds started to appear one after another. The White Cross Guild, Holy Land Guild. All 5 guilds gathered to fight against the demonic army. The war was in full swing, and on the other side, in the world of demons, a squad of heroes began their raid. The bard activated his skill, Song of Seraphim. It increased the speed of the party. Hidden effect after the start of the second act of the song. David remarked that it was very cool. The song is in time. Angela urged David to join her before it was too late. He sent her panties, and noticed that he had already told her that no, he does not know her hidden motives, but he will deal with them himself. And David slammed his club down on the floor and shot up. He was in super speed. It was impossible to follow him. The first one to be destroyed in battles was the one who heals and applies effects to the team. And David rushed to attack the bard, but Yopi managed to react and deflected his blow. He turned the sword, parrying the attack. This is a skill Yopi learned when he was a hero. Perfect reflection. Urus asked the Goddess of Life, "Does that mean the Demon King is invincible?" But she replied that if you attack continuously, even a tenth of a second would be enough to distract him, and the skill would not work, and he could be defeated. The bard, meanwhile, moved on to the second act, and due to the vibrations, the speed of the team members increased. David continued to attack, and Yopi activated the hidden skill, Hero's Glory. His strength was reduced in exchange for doubling all other stats, and he rushed to attack David. But he noticed that he was playing as if with a cat. The magician activated the meteor spell and something began to form in the sky. It was the first time David had seen it in action, but he could have easily dodged it. But instead, he struck upwards and the meteor shattered. Trusiki turned to the team of heroes and asked, "Do they have any more tricks?" And he suggested that they stop playing and finish everything quickly. But the hero Yopi replied that they had only just begun to draw their cards. And then the Song of the Seraphim activated a hidden effect. All enemy stats will be halved. Yopi said that now the Demon King and Panty's stats are equal, and he can only rely on his gluttony. But thanks to the perfect reflection, he can't reach them with his tentacle. This is their main trump card, and the hero asked, "What aces does David have?" And Trusiki answered that they were, and took out Brown's mirror from under his cloak. One of the skills of the 8 panoramas was sealed in it. He activated the skill Loop. It increased the size of the user depending on the level of mana. And David began to grow to the sky. One of the features of the demonic world was the black sky, but it suddenly became white. Meanwhile, on the other side, the battle between the 5 best guilds and the demons was going on. Love raised her level by fighting, to the level of a fighter. But she told Beverly that it seemed like there was no end to these demons. They just kept getting bigger. Beverly replied that the demons use the king's mana and are resurrected again and again. And the demon king Yopi's mana has now become infinite. And there is no end to these creatures. And it's not the difficulty of the task, but the fact that it is impossible. And then the next demon pounced on them. The battle continued. Beverly used the fire spear. She said there was only one way to complete the quest: to pacify Yopi's sin of wrath. Love suggested leaving the game and waiting for the panties to deal with him. But the guild leader replied that the demons would turn everything into ashes. Both animals and plants will perish, and the world of people will become like the world of demons. But Lav asked if the development team would fix it, because then the game would be ruined. But Beverly said no. She had read the notice. It said that the future of Chronolife was in the hands of its users. It was a precedent. For the first time in history, the fate of a game depends entirely on its users. And why doesn't the company do anything other than send a notice? If the world is destroyed, no one will restore it. The director of Chronolife stated that based on the data received, the game should be discontinued. Love didn't understand. This is the #1 company in the world, and she really loves this game. And Anna decided to tell everything to other users. They should be aware. And then she saw how ordinary users came to the front lines and began to fight the demons. Beverly admired that everything was as before. They were fighting shoulder to shoulder. And she called on everyone to save this world. Regular users and players thrashed demons with all their might, increased experience, and received unique items. At the same time, in the ruined castle of demons, David grew thousands of meters above his enemies. He was enormous. And then Seraphim's song activated another effect, reducing enemy statuses by 5 times. But Angela and Eurus noticed that it didn't work anymore, because the song didn't reach David's ears. And then, from the sky, David looked at his enemies with huge eyes and asked how Yopi was repelling the enemy's attack and if he wanted to try again. And he delivered a stunning blow downwards. And then the effect of the mirror ended. The use time expired. David thought it was broken. But the mirror needed time to work again. Trusaki realized that he had destroyed the planet. But the servers did not crash because he was in the demon world. Then the Urus appeared and was glad that David was safe and of normal size. But he did something wrong again. Then the goddess of life appeared and asked how he was going to clean up the mess. David was surprised that she was alive and thought that perhaps Yopi was alive too. And then they heard a cough. And on the surviving fragment of the planet, they saw Yopi. He was barely alive. They were surprised that he not only survived the impact, but also survived in space. The goddess of life said that Yopi was dying. He didn't have long left, and the rest of his companions were already dead. And David was glad that their task was completed. He went up to Yopi and asked him that he was going to just die like that. He said yes. His eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. David said there was no point in pretending to be a great and all-powerful hero. He won anyway. Yopi asked if all human heroes were so arrogant. But the truth is that he had never met anyone stronger than David. And he admitted his defeat. The battle on Earth continued. The demons were winning. They had cornered the users. But Chief Hawkeye said they had to hold on with all their might. Keep fighting until that man defeats the Yopi. It doesn't matter that they are weak, but they must fight. Love was injured and very weak. Beverly was worried about her. She was clearly exhausted. All the players were exhausted. They wouldn't last long at this rate. And the demons kept appearing. The huge demon grabbed Beverly in his fist and began to crush her. She thought that this was her end. But at that moment, the demon began to crumble into pieces. And all the demons crumbled into dust and disappeared. They were saved. It was a wonderful job. But Love said that panties saved them all. Yopi was slowly dying. He told David his time was up. David smashed him to smithereens. But David finally asked him, after all, he was a hero who destroyed the Demon King, but why does he hate people so much? Yopi replied that it was a sad story. Mortals could not reach the sun. They adored him. But then they hated him because of his strength. And he loved people like no one else. Hero Yopi died. The quest was completed. David received a reward for destroying the main boss, and Panties got a chest with a gift for having made the greatest contribution to completing the quest. And then the creator appeared. He greeted David, saying that they had not seen each other for a long time. God said that Panties surprised him when he watched what was happening. He didn't think he would win. The creator congratulated David on his victory and said that he would give him an additional reward for his contribution to the quest. And Trusik received a message about receiving the abilities of one of the 7 deadly sins. He had a choice to make: become one of the 7 sins or remain human. Yopi once faced the same choice, and he chose to remain human. And in the end, he died. Because of his anger, he was reborn as the deadly sin Wrath. And the creator told David to make his choice. David made his choice without hesitation. Angela and Urus didn't see what he pressed, but they were very curious. The creator asked Trusiki to explain his choice. He was simply curious why. The next day, David woke up in his apartment bed. He was awakened by a text message that came to his phone. It was Anna Sarang. She asked him what he was doing. He replied that he was resting. Love asked him what about work, and he said he didn't want to because it was nothing but trouble. David thought he deserved a day off because he had done a great job, and Love suddenly invited him to have dinner together. David was surprised. Thought she had the wrong number, I guess. Why would she want to have dinner with him? And then Angela appeared out of nowhere and said that Love was just flirting with him. David jumped away from her and asked where she came from and why she was here again. He fell out of bed in surprise. Angela laughed at this. David demanded to know why she had come to him and threatened to call the police and put her in jail. Angela said there was no need to shout, and she only came to give him the shirt he had lent her. David was surprised when he gave her the shirt, and he remembered that she was wearing a shirt the last time they met. She took it from him herself and asked what he was going to do and if he wanted to have dinner with her. David screwed up. He invited them both to dinner. They sat at a table, the 3 of them. Love was angry with him, saying that they were going to have dinner together. But David objected that they were playing the same game together anyway, so why couldn't they have dinner together? And then he decided that he didn't have to justify himself because he had done nothing wrong. David said they met by chance, but Angela clarified that they had recently been in the same bed. Love demanded an explanation. David had screwed up big time, and Angela said, he and Love aren't even dating, so why is she putting so much pressure on him? Love replied that they were on the same team, and that as a leader, she had to take care of its members. And I asked Angela what their relationship was like. It just looks like she's stalking him. And Angela replied that they are very connected. They are together in real life and in the game. But David replied that it didn't make sense as it was in the game and not in reality. But Angela convinced him that the sensations in the game were almost no different from real ones, and she suggested that he check by stroking her lips. Love yelled at them to keep their distance and stop talking about such things in front of her. She decided that they were a couple, and she was upset. But Angela added that she was a terribly boring girl. Love stood up, slammed the door, and left the cafe. David said that it was time for them to wrap up too. Angela thanked him for dinner and said that next time she would take him to her favorite restaurant. And I noticed that the sun was shining just as brightly now as it did then. David asked why she didn't leave. Didn't she want to go home? And then Angela asked about the reward for the quest. Why did he choose this option? He replied that she thought he would make a choice like that guy, and that worried her. And she said that she thinks there is a reason for this. For example, Love, Anna Sarang. Maybe this is one of the reasons. David said he didn't understand what she was talking about and that he had to go. He said goodbye and left. Urus was very happy that David was back in the game. He had been gone all day, and he was worried if he was okay. The dragon asked why they were here. This wasn't a frontline village, and David replied, maybe because the demon world had fallen. How nice it is when no one is flickering before your eyes and you can rest. Urus was surprised that he came to rest in the game. Why didn't he rest in real life? David replied that in the real world, things were even worse. And he thought about girls. And then a wooden club fell next to him. A beginner's weapon. Almost useless. And the same boy appeared as in the beginning. He gave him a club. President Abram Jones personally oversaw all of this. An employee asked what they should do. To which the president replied, "Do what you must. The time has come for them to meet. This must be God's joke." David was happy to see them and asked if the baby was okay and how much time had passed since their first meeting. But then he realized that the kid didn't know him. David said that his weapon was destroyed because he used the attack at full power. And then the kid showed up and brought the club again. How come he doesn't remember it at all? The kid remembered that he had seen his statue in the frontline village. Here he saw the Urus and got scared. David was surprised that he could see him. But the dragon explained that David had materialized him, and now everyone could see him. He took Urus and gave it to the baby, saying that it was a dragon and was supposed to be the main boss. But something went wrong. The kid started hugging Urus, and he was terribly indignant. David took the club and thought that it was the same and had already changed his life once. He asked the little boy if he wanted to listen to his story, and began to tell it. David told everything that happened to him during this time in the game. The kid listened to him attentively. Until then, no one had heard this story. He told everything. The boy was delighted. And then David said that after defeating the hero Yopi, he was offered to make a choice. Does he want to become one of the deadly sins or prefers to remain human? And asked the kid what he thought he chose. Yes, he chose to remain human. And if the baby wants to know the reason, he will tell him later. And now he has a gift for the baby. And he summoned all his excellent weapons. And he told the boy that all this was for him, and he could take it. David didn't need it anyway, since he had a club. But the boy shook his head, rejecting the gift. He didn't speak at all. David was surprised that he didn't need it. The kid wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to David. On the piece of paper the child gave David was the hospital's address. And there he saw something that shocked him. The only person David ever told his story to. The one he opened his heart to. In 2 weeks, she would die of an incurable disease as a child. And it was a girl. David came into her room, and the girl patted the bed, beckoning him closer to her. She was wearing a mask and was unable to speak due to illness. She communicated through a letter on a piece of paper. The girl apologized for her request, but she really wanted David to come to her here. She was happy to hear about his adventures, but she wanted to tell her story too. This story is not as interesting as David's, but she really wants someone to remember her. Maybe it's her selfishness. Trusiki said that everything was fine and let her talk. He would listen carefully. The girl began to write. In that world, she is a merchant. Merchants constantly communicate with people, sell and buy items. In the real world, she couldn't make friends because of her shyness. But in the game, things were different. People smiled when they met her, and she had a great time playing Chrono Life. President Abram Jones admired her. She was such a bright child. Even though she knew she would go into the red, she still sold things at the lowest prices. She's not much of a trader, but profit isn't the most important thing. Everyone loved her, not only the users, but also the NPS. She doesn't literally shine, but her smile is like a star that lights up the world. The president felt sorry that one day she stopped logging into the game. Users thought she was busy with her studies or went on vacation, but everyone really missed this little girl. Time flew by quickly, and those who started playing with her had already leveled up and left the city, going on a journey. New players came and few remembered her. And then one day, the girl entered the game again. But the president noticed that she had changed a lot. Her long hair was gone, and her clothes were very simple. All the things she had left, she gave away to the newcomers. Her words were replaced by smiles. She gave away all the items and gold except for the club that players receive at the beginning of the game. The girl tried to give it to the man, but he threw it away, saying that it was given to everyone for free at the beginning of the game. And then she heard a knock and a crash from around the corner. The girl looked into the alley, and there sat David, hammering his sword. He had smashed all his equipment and was in despair, and she decided to give him her club. That was her story. It's too early to think about it, but it will probably end here. Finally, I gave the beginning of a new story, yours, about a wooden club of the 99th level. The girl only pretended not to notice her condition, but when she learned the diagnosis, she cried a lot. She thought that she would never look the same again, and that everyone would forget about her. And if suddenly a miracle happens and she can overcome the disease, she just needs someone who will remember her. David ran home as fast as he could. in a hurry to get into the game as quickly as possible. After entering, he went to the Valley of Death to kill monsters. He beat them mercilessly. Urus noted that he had never seen him so angry. David drove away anger and resentment, relieved stress. Sitting in the girl's ward, he asked if there was a way out, if it was possible to perform an operation. The girl replied that she had a very rare disease and the operation was too expensive. Her parents did everything they could to find money for the operation, but they never found the necessary amount. David said he would pay for everything. Tens, even hundreds of billions. The amount didn't matter. He promised the girl that she would have this operation, and she asked why he was giving her hope. A vain hope. Even if the operation is successful, the disease will not go away. Her chances of survival were only 30%. But David said that was good enough. But the girl said that it was difficult for her to decide on the operation. And what if she died on the operating table? And without surgery, you can live for 2 weeks. It's all complicated. It's not a game, it's life. It's not as simple as choosing a game item or weapon. And if she dies, everyone will forget about her. She didn't want to die. She was afraid. She was scared. David stood in the Valley of Death, calmed down a little and thought about the girl. Then Angela appeared. Urus asked her why she came to David so often. She answered that she didn't want to show up often, but she senses when people are lacking something. And the goddess came to David and said that he himself asked her to help. Trusiki asked if she had fulfilled his request. She said, of course, and called him to follow her. The girl sat in the ward with her eyes closed and tears rolling down her cheeks. David sat down next to her and took her by the shoulder. She looked up, delighted to see him, and saw that there were many other people in the room besides him. Trusiki said that no one would forget her. Everyone remembers her. And these people began to turn to her. The woman said that the girl gave her a sweet potato, and thanks to it, she got the job. Another girl said that her team still goes hunting with the weapons she gave them. They all wanted to thank her, but they didn't find her in the city when they returned. People claimed that they remembered her and did not forget about her for a moment. They all loved her very much, and the girl burst into tears of happiness. A few days later, the girl began her operation. People came to support her at the hospital. It was Luna who sought out all these people so that meeting them would give her the strength to move forward. There was only 30% at stake, but this small and fragile girl turned out to be stronger than everyone else. Inside, she was unhappy, but in the game, she shone like a radiant star, illuminating the world around her. Although due to her naivety and kindness, she suffered huge losses as a merchant. This girl was the only person to whom David told his story, opened his heart, and her character's name is Samantha. The demon world is a parallel dimension, cut off from the human world. It disappeared after the battle with the hero Yopi, but was fully restored after some time. And soon, the demons began a bloody massacre among themselves, all because they did not have a king, and they could not conquer the world of people. They took out their anger on each other and destroyed their relatives. With them was the assistant of the great demon king Death. He restrained the demons a little, but he knew that there was only one way to calm their anger and aggression. Only to find a new king. Death held an evil gem in his hand, an artifact containing the power of the demon king. The assistant picked it up nearby. Most likely it appeared after Yopi's death. But he couldn't give it to just anyone. He needed a worthy person. He had to wait and look for a candidate. And Death decided that he had found the right one. And it was David. Meanwhile, Trusiki hunted bear hares, killed them, and collected their teeth in a bag. The crushed teeth of the bear hare were good for restoring health. David decided that it was enough, and he and the Urus headed to the village. In the village, people all recognized him and looked around. But he was of little interest. Samantha was waiting for him in the square. Today he decided to meet his star, and she called him Big Brother. Samantha overcame her illness, and now, having recovered, she can live a full life. David handed her a bag of bear hair teeth and said he had what she asked for. She was grateful, and then she activated the potion-making skill, and from her teeth came many vials of potion. David said that there was a lot of potion, and she could get a lot of money from selling it. But Samantha said she wasn't making it to sell, and immediately rushed off to give it to the builders. They were rebuilding the city after the war, and spent a lot of energy, and the little star brought them a potion for regeneration. The builders loved her very much and thanked her for everything. She treated them to potion, and everyone was happy. David was shocked, but after standing and thinking, he told Urus that they needed to kill more bear hares. Meanwhile, Love sat on her bed in her room, suffering. David and Angela couldn't get out of her head. The manager came into the room and asked why she was always so gloomy lately. Again, because of this guy in his underwear. Love said no, but the manager said it was obvious. And Lav told her that her friend had a situation. She started to like one guy. The manager immediately understood who she was talking about because she didn't have any friends. Love continued that at first he was just an ordinary player to her and they went through many trials together. She was often angry with him, but she herself did not understand at what point she began to look forward to meeting him. He helped her in the game, and she didn't even notice how all the thoughts in her head were occupied by him. And Lav made excuses so that she wouldn't think anything. Her friend didn't fall in love with him. She just wanted to see him more often. Will it pass? This is a friend asking. This is not her story. The manager said there was no need to lie. She was an artist under her wing, and the woman had already made inquiries long ago. She knew that the guy she was talking about in his underwear was from her team. The manager said that most fans would turn away from an idol in a relationship. And it's not she who's so mean. That's the law of the market. An idol gets money from the love of fans. You'll just betray their feelings. All your years of work will collapse like a house of cards, but she won't stop her. It's her life, and it's up to her to decide, no matter what anyone says. And she will always be on her side. And if Anna goes broke, she will become someone else's manager. Only she will get good paychecks. And she asked what kind of relationship Anna wants. Love replied that she didn't know, but she definitely wanted to make him hers. The manager said, "Great." And she said she'd recognize her girl. But she had to hold her horses. She'd think about it. And the manager asked if he was already an adult, or if he was also 17. Anna replied that he should first fall in love with her, and then wait 3 years until he comes of age. Love said that she was waiting for her advice, since she had no experience in such matters yet. The manager said it was cruel, but she could rely on her. Anna thanked the manager and decided to enter the game to see the panties. And the manager picked up her phone and Googled how to seduce a man. She was a great manager, built a wonderful career, but not a single relationship in her entire 27 years. Meanwhile, Death's assistant came to the world of people. He was looking for David, but he was unprepared and did not understand what to do. And demons are no help to him. He has to do everything himself. And then he heard the noise of battle. Everything around was sparkling. And Death knew that he had found him. David and the Urus were killing bear hares. They still had 20 or 30 teeth to collect. And then suddenly Lav appeared and, using her power, knocked down the bear hare. She held out 3 teeth to David in her palm and asked if he wanted more. Panties felt guilty and asked Love for forgiveness for the dinner situation. He shouldn't have taken Angela with him, and he didn't know they had such a terrible relationship. David said that he should have apologized earlier and suggested that they go out for dinner together. Love replied that she had a very busy schedule, but she would try to find time for him. But at the same time, Anna insisted that he tell her what he and Angela had been doing at home. He replied that there was nothing between them. But Love didn't believe him and demanded an answer. She pushed him to the ground and began to choke him, demanding an answer to her question. Death reached them just at that time. And seeing what was happening, he was shocked. He decided that the guy who defeated the Demon King Yopi was defeated. And if that was the case, then the one who defeated him was stronger. The world of people horrified him. The assistant saw a devilish look and a demonic grin on Anna, and he decided that this man was destined to become the Demon King. Death walked up to Love and handed her a green gemstone. He told her to take it because she deserved it. Love asked what it was and who he was. She reached out and took the gem. Everything around was illuminated by a green flash, and Love received the essence of the Demon King. She had a job change to the Demon King, and her body absorbed the king's essence. The creator was pleased. He said, "Finally it happened." The last point. It was supposed to be Yopi, but everything went wrong. And no matter how hard Luna tried, David refused her. Probably the first time she was refused. And she has something in mind, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's too late. This is the final chapter of the story. Love rose into the sky and glowed green. David was blinded by it. She is granted the privileges of the Demon King profession, and all stats are increased tenfold. Love was shocked. She screamed that why did he suddenly decide that he could change her class? She didn't want to be the Demon King. She ordered to return everything back. But the system kept on linking and linking, adding statuses and options to it. David watched and asked Urus what the hell was going on. Urus didn't understand either. Love received the hidden ability of the Demon King's coming. She asked to stop all this. But the system launched a visualization of the coming, and Love turned into a beautiful, sexy girl with white hair and in black clothes. Anna screamed, asking where her clothes had gone and what had happened to her hair. And Urus realized that Boss Love had become the Demon King. David didn't understand why, because she hadn't given her consent. The assistant explained that this ability gives her the appearance of a Demon King, and she gains a huge supply of mana. Only in this form are the Demon King's exclusive skills available. And the passive skill, King's Authority, is available for the entire time of possession. It helps to rule the demon race without problems. Love asked what the Demon King's exceptional skills were, and the system immediately started the training and demonstration. And in an instant, Anna grew demonic dragon wings and horns. The essence of the Demon King was launched. Lav pointed her finger at the sky and activated the destruction, causing a fireball to shoot into the sky and an explosion. Anna was shocked. Did she really do it? And then the demonstration ended. Love's wings and horns disappeared, and she descended to Earth in a new form. David said that she was cool and very strong now. And Love didn't know what to do now. Will she really have to fight with people now, and even with him, Panties? She was upset that it all happened so suddenly. No one asked her, and her clothes and even hair changed. Anna asked if she looked strange now, but David replied that she didn't at all. The assistant watched what was happening and was sure that he was not mistaken. Love immediately used destruction, only changed class. He knew that deep within her slumbered the real evil. And then Love yelled at him, "Who the hell is he?" and let him return everything to how it was. But Death replied that it was impossible. The Demon King's essence will not leave the body until the host dies. And since she is a unique boss, after her death, the character will be deleted. David found his assistant very nice, but Urus immediately became jealous and said that he was much nicer than Death. Anna pounced on the assistant and began to stretch him and ask him to return everything back. David told Urus that Love was a complete fool, and all she needed to do was cancel the coming of the Demon King or regime. And Trusiki called Urus to give him the bear hare's teeth. Zvezdochka was probably already waiting for them. The dragon noticed that David treated her like a sister, and he replied that it was even better. The next action takes place in Arden Castle. This is one of the largest castles in Chrono Life. With huge, majestic walls, this castle is called the most impregnable fortress in the game. The knights were on guard for security. They saw something rapidly approaching the castle. It was a monster. It ran up, flew up, jumped onto the wall, and attacked the guards. It was a huge wolf dog, similar to a werewolf. The guard was surprised at what kind of unseen monster it was. 2 more monsters joined him. They spoke in human voices and said that they were not just monsters. They were beast men. The army was immediately put on alert. The guild leader, Hawkeye, was surprised that someone dared to attack the castle head-on. He decided that it was just a stupid animal, but it was still hard to believe. Hawkeye was the master of Arden Castle. He ordered his warriors to investigate what was happening, and the guild leader turned on the stream. Liv broadcast and showed users what was happening. He showed everyone the monsters and said that it was the first time he saw talking monsters. They were humanoid. And he said that if anyone heard anything about beastmen, then let them write in the comments. The battle was going on. The knights were fighting, and suddenly everything became quiet. And the hawk's eyes saw that his entire army was killed. The beastmen towered over the corpses of people, whole and unharmed. At that moment, Hawkeye's stream was watched by 38,933 people. And despite the fact that all the viewers wanted content, everyone advised him to run away from there immediately. Hawkeye quickly ran away, ran and thought, "What the hell is this?" And he has never seen anything like it. But even the elf's nimble legs could not protect him from the beastmen. They caught up with Hawkeye and finished him off. Arden Castle was empty in a matter of seconds. This is how the three hitherto unknown beastmen introduced themselves to the people. Meanwhile, Assistant Death provoked Love into action, saying that it was time to destroy all humans. He called for the continent to be flooded with blood and covered with mountains of human corpses. But Love said she didn't want to do that, and she shouldn't. Why all of a sudden? Death said that it was necessary and that it was natural selection. But Love said that she would not do it, and that she was weak. The assistant was surprised how weak she could be if she defeated Panties himself. But Love replied that she actually had a low level. Death asked what level. Anna said that she was on level 25, but after the quest, she rose to 92nd. The assistant was puzzled as to how Love could have defeated David at the maximum level. And why does he call her Boss Love? David replied that it was a long story and related to their first meeting. The assistant was in shock. He didn't understand anything and didn't know what to do next. And then the sky started to crack. It just split in one place. David and Love had never seen anything like this before. They wondered what was going on, and then a huge monster's hand appeared from the crack. It was the goddess of life, Angela, who had arrived. She saw the current Love and noticed that she had become quite feminine and delicious while they were away. Angela approached Love and asked if she could take a bite out of her. David stepped between them and said, "Enough. And isn't she going to kill Love's boss?" The goddess replied that it would be a pity to kill her now, and that for now everything was going as it should. And she congratulated Love on her new status as the Demon King, and said that it was a pretty cute mode. So cute that her hands itched to kill Anna. David didn't understand Angela. She helped a lot with the operation of the star, and now she behaved like this. He asked, "Is she good or bad?" And she replied that if he, the cutie, liked kind girls, then she could very well pretend to be kind and innocent. Trusiki asked why she was here, and Angela answered that the last chapter in Chrono Life had begun, and soon this game will come to its logical end. David said she was talking nonsense because it was an online game, and as long as they kept updating it, it was a never-ending story. She replied that she thought so too, but he would soon find out. That the main plot line was calculated to take years to complete. Because of this, it was difficult for an ordinary user to resist Yopi, much less defeat him. But even this most difficult quest, which destroyed everything in its path, was completed in an instant. It has been very little time since Yopi's death, but a new Demon King has already appeared on the scene. And then Angela swung her staff at Love. But David forbade Angela to kill her. She replied that she wasn't going to do it yet. She activated the teleporter, and Love disappeared. Trusiki pounced on the goddess of life, asking where she sent Love. Angela replied that there was no need to worry. She had sent her to the last chapter of the story. Lav suddenly found herself in a strange place. She looked around and realized that it was Arden Castle. David asked Angela why she sent Anna to Castle Arden. She replied that it was the first test in the final chapter. An ancient race came from the northern continent. Beastmen. And David smiled that he had worried in vain. After all, beastmen are also animals, and Boss Love is now the queen of demons. How can she lose to some little animal? And Boss Love entered the battle with the beastmen. She used the dive dragon kick, and she noticed that her body became so light, as if she was about to fly. For the first time, she felt like she would never lose to anyone. The beastman noted that she was not bad, and most likely it would be an interesting battle. Love thought she had killed the werewolf and was surprised that he was alive and speaking human language. The monster threatened to devour her, and she realized that this was no ordinary werewolf. Angela explained to David that these were not ordinary monsters, and that the beastmen were 10 times stronger than Boss Love from birth. According to the script, these strong animals were supposed to appear in about 10 years. It won't be easy for the newborn Demon King to deal with them. The werewolf used the steel claw technique and in an instant destroyed the entire forest with one blow, leaving only crevices. Lav realized that if he hit her, she would die instantly. The monster used the skill Beast Hunt. The battle was going on, and the castle sparkled throughout the area. David said, "What nonsense! First the unequal quest, now this. Why is there no balance in the game?" Angela said that David shouldn't talk about balance. All events in the game happen for one reason, and that reason is panties. It's all because of him. David said that he didn't understand, but the goddess replied that he shouldn't pretend to be a fool, because he himself understood how different he was from this world. There is another version that the root cause is a level 99th baton, but Angela insisted that, in her opinion, it was not the tool that was more important than the person using it. But David said that he didn't care, and that he really needed to save Love's boss now. He asked Angela to teleport him to Arden Castle, but she refused. Trusiki was thinking about how he could get there, but even if he turned off the recoil control or turned on super speed, he wouldn't have time, since the castle was very far away. Angela smiled and told him to be there and enjoy being with her. After all, the boss loves the Demon Queen, and does David really think that she will lose? And then David remembered a wonderful way to get to Arden Castle. Trusiki got on all fours, applied super speed, and began to spin in one place. Angela couldn't understand what he was doing. And then David created a tornado by simply running in circles. She thought that he decided to move to the right place on a tornado, but it turned out that, running for a whole minute, he activated the light speed skill. And at that very moment, he rushed off to help Anna in Arden Castle. Love continued her desperate battle with the werewolf. He was surprised by her endurance, but decided that she was already at the limit of her capabilities. And at that moment, David appeared. He said that he had come to save Anna. She replied that he had been delayed somewhere. Trusiki went to the werewolf and said how dare he raise his paw against Boss Love. The monster replied that he would gladly devour him too. And then two more beastmen approached. They reasoned that it seemed like all the people in this castle had been killed. But where did these two worms come from? Another monster said that everything was going according to plan, and if they continued like this, everything would work out. And at that moment, David struck with a club and killed one beastman. The remaining two rushed at him to fight. David swung, but then Love stopped him. She realized her abilities and capabilities and said that she would finish them off herself. Love became stronger and wanted to fight next to the panties, and David said that was fine, and he would leave one monster for her. At the same time, he grabbed the lizard-like beast by the tongue, and he led him aside so as not to interfere with Love's fight, and to clear the battlefield. The werewolf thought, "What a strange guy in shorts. He's some kind of abnormal. We need to finish here and deal with him." Love hit the werewolf hard. He thought she was faster. The werewolf activated the Iron Claw, but at that time, Love activated the ability Beast Hunt. She soared up, turned over, and thought that she was moving exactly as she thought in her head. Upon landing, Love activated Destruction, a shot of concentrated mana. She also activated the Demon King's essence. Wings appeared. She flew up and fired a shot to kill. Lav destroyed it and received experience for killing the monster. Her level increased to 139. David came up and praised her for doing it herself. But Anna replied that her level had increased by 40. Maybe it's a bug. But James replied that these are beastmen who were supposed to appear in 10 years. That's why they bring so much experience. David treated Love to meat, offering her a snack. She took the treat and ate it with pleasure. She asked where the lizard was that David had taken. He replied that they were eating it right now. Love, in shock, hit David, saying, "Why eat the poor monster?" Not far from Arden Castle, in the forest, under a tree, sat a barely alive Hawkeye. He was pursued and found by another beastman in the form of a huge eagle monster, and he asked the guild leader why he was running away from him. Hawkeye ran away from the castle so that they wouldn't find him, and he asked the monster why they needed him, since he had left them the castle. They could easily take it, but the eagle replied that he needed this particular man, as he had the ability to broadcast video and messages across the entire continent. The monster said that he needed Hawkeye to convey his message to the entire southern continent. Hawkeye is back on the air. He cut off the broadcast earlier so players wouldn't see how the monsters took over Castle Arden. When users saw it, a monster eagle joined the broadcast. He introduced himself as a resident of the southern continent, saying that he was an ancient beastman who came from the northern continent. And he made a statement. He recently watched as they repelled the coming of demons. Even though defeat was inevitable, they still won and amazed him. The beastmen have been at odds with the demons since ancient times, and to get even with the humans, they will invade their lands in exactly 30 days. Their lands will be flooded with blood, and the surviving people will have the honor of serving the beastmen forever. And in Chrono Life, the main quest began. The invasion of ancient beastmen from the northern continent, immediately after the invasion of demons. This quest is of a higher level of difficulty. Only a miracle saved from demons, and completing this quest is an impossible task. Thanks to the latest broadcast, the number of Hawkeye's subscribers has increased several times. The upcoming battle became a topic of discussion around the world, and the Chrono Life company became the target of criticism. President Abram Jones knew that the Chrono Life game's reputation was in total disrepair. At the same time, in the center of the virtual reality in the Hall of Game Capsules, the head of the guild, Robin Hood, was sitting. The guy playing in the next capsule looked at her and decided to hit on her. He started praising the game, knowing that she plays Chrono Life. And he said that it was a very cool quest, and it would be fun. The girl replied that not at all, and that she was very angry right now, so it would be good if he would leave her alone. The guy got upset and walked away, and the guild leader read the message and thought that the developers had crossed the line. The tension reached its limit and resulted in an outburst of anger among users. Chrono Life was a game where people could relax and take a break from reality. Now it made everyone feel like a loser. Anger fueled their desire to fight back. Koala centers were prepared for the rush, but no one called, because they knew that the company would become inactive again. And the president aggressively declared that for users, they are again the worst. Only this time, they will not complete this quest. The rating of the game Chrono Life had record lows, sliding down rapidly. But at the same time, the number of connected users reached a historical maximum. Love complained to David that the Beastmen invasion would begin in 30 days, and all users were trying to farm their level as much as possible. There were crowds of players in the hunting grounds, but could they win even if they all leveled up? It's not easy to kill even one Beastman, but what will happen when they come with a whole army? Trusiki said that he was not going to wait a whole month, as his hands were itching, and he would go to the northern continent right now. He activated the light speed skill and immediately rushed away, leaving Love alone. David soared into space, saw the location of the northern continent on the planet, and rushed towards it. But it hit something hard in the sky and couldn't come down. It was like a protective dome. And he got a message that the continent is currently unavailable, come back later. We'll be waiting for you next time. David was angry about such a setup on Chrono Life, and the president was very amused. He knew David was going there, so he blocked everything. But the company employee objected that the president had promised not to interfere in the game. But he said that what difference did it make now, since he was already an enemy of the people? Love laughed at Trusikov that he came back angry and pouty at everyone, and said that he would have to wait a month. But David was furious about all this, and he thought he could destroy the entire planet at once, out of anger. Angela appeared next to them again and said that they shouldn't do this because the servers would be rebooted, and the result would not change. But David replied that he would change because he would feel better. And he asked why she had come back again. The cockroach. Angela came to find out who won, the new Demon Queen or the Beast Men. But everything went as she thought, although she would be glad if Love got hurt. Anna screamed why she was clinging to her and offering to fight her. And Angela came up to her and said that it was really time for them to get to know each other better. She said that she was 21 years old, and she noted that Love was only 17, and she should speak to her more politely. Love was outraged that her vile behavior did not deserve any politeness. The assistant flew up to Love and said that he had been looking for her for a long time. But it would be better if she died, and he found a better king. Anna grabbed him and started beating him, but he asked what she was doing there all alone. Love looked back and saw David leaving for the frontline village to the little star, and the clinging cockroach sweetly saw him off. She caught up with them and said that she would go with him. David agreed to take both of them, but on the condition that they did not destroy the village. At this time, somewhere in the west of the planet, the desert boss, the king of sandworms, appeared. The members of the 5 guilds tried to defeat the worm. The guild leaders watched the events. They reasoned that their people were eager to fight as never before, but they were unlikely to defeat the beastmen who were supposed to appear in 10 years. One beastman was equal in strength to a top-level boss, said the strongest mage Abracadabra. Hawkeye said that they had no choice but to rely on the great warrior. Abracadabra said that they must prepare themselves, because it is foolish to rely on one man in a war. After all, even during the demon invasion, they fought on their own while David was in the demon world. Everything will be useless if they don't prepare. Guildmaster Robin Hood said she had an idea, and if everything works out, they will be able to fight the beastmen on equal terms. But they need the help of a great warrior. No matter how you look at it, they will still have to rely on him. In the frontline village, Zvezdochka happily greeted David. She asked where he had been for so long. She had been looking for him everywhere. He replied that he had been collecting bear hair fangs for her. Star Samantha asked who the girls were next to him. Could these really be the sisters Luna and Love? And David confirmed it, since he had already told her about them. Love asked who the little girl was, and David told her that she was the one who gave him the club, and the whole story that followed. Anna burst into tears from what she heard and rushed to hug the girl and ask if everything was okay with her now. And then the star asked which of the 2 of them was David's girlfriend. All 3 of them froze. Trusiki replied that none of them did, and handed Samantha a bag of bear hair fangs. But the girl analyzed the situation and realized that both girls cared about David. Was this really a love triangle? She had only read about it in books before. She was curious, and she didn't stop. She asked her brother who he liked more. Really both? David blushed and said that she was crazy and that she was imagining things, and he replied that he only loved Urus. He commented that it was a joke and changed the subject. Trusiki complained that he still had to wait a whole month, but Samantha said that he could just enjoy the game while he could. He's always in a hurry to get somewhere, and that makes her wary. At that moment, Beverly appeared next to them. She greeted David, saying that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. She said she was ashamed, but still wanted to ask for a favor. It was related to the upcoming battle. At this time, on the northern continent, the Beastman in the form of an eagle reported to his boss that they had warned about the attack of people, as he said. The boss was the polar dragon Aventador. He praised him and said that the Beastmen had enough time to prepare. Soon, the southern continent will be in their power, and the ancient Beastman dragon will finally meet his brother Urus. At this time, David and his whole company were having dinner in the game and discussing their plan. Everyone was in a joyful mood. The plan was great, and they believed that everything would work out. Only Angela spoke out against it. She said that David would not benefit from this. It was a sacrifice on his part, and Beverly's request was too much. And if the plan works, then there may be problems with the Chronolife Company. They will put all the dogs on him. But David was amused by all this, but not at all frightened. He really liked Beverly's plan. He was delighted. He said he would go there right away and sped away at the speed of light, leaving them alone. Samantha was surprised by his quick disappearance, because he hadn't even eaten. And she asked what Beverly's plan was, because the meat was so delicious that she hardly listened to them. And Beverly started explaining everything to Samantha. She said that there was something that could make them stronger. And that's the stuff. And so David went to get it, to the highest level hunting ground in the Urus Cave. The Great Warrior will get high-quality gear there and sell it to all users. But Samantha objected that it was impossible and the entire game economy would collapse. The clothes of ordinary users would collapse in price. And besides, the gear obtained in the Urus Cave will no longer be unique and scarce, and the company will punish David then. Beverly understood this and said that there was simply no other way out. And Trusiki is not worried about it. He was very angry about the blockade of the northern continent. and they decided that it was not worth touching a man who had nothing to lose. David got the weapons and set up a fair sale in the game. He sold everything very cheaply. The weapon had to be available to everyone. People lined up to get their hands on the unique weapon. A boy came up to him and asked for the dead man's sword. He sold it to him for 10,000 gold. The boy was level 19. It was very cheap. David did not organize an auction because Len Rodriguez would buy all the weapons. So he sold it personally to the players, although it took a lot of time. And then a 2-meter-tall man with a huge sword on his back approached Trusiki. He pushed everyone aside and asked David, without waiting in line, for the same sword that he had sold to the boy at level 19. The guy waiting for the weapon was outraged that this guy had cut in line, but he grabbed him and threw him aside, almost killing him in the process. Everyone was shocked by what was happening, and the man asked who else was unhappy about something. Everyone was frightened and kept silent. He said he wanted a dead man's sword, and David said it was worth 10 million gold. The man objected that he had just sold the same sword to the boy for 10,000. But David replied that the price depended on the level. The man called him a fraud, and Trusiki replied that if he was not satisfied with something, they could sort it out in a fight. The man immediately handed over the money and thanked David for the weapon he had bought.